Well, hi everyone, and good evening. Good's an operative word. Just gone 2 minutes past 8 here, Thursday evening. I've got lots of interesting little things to mention to you early on, but this is Paul English Live, episode 140. We've got 3 guests lined up for tonight. I'm looking forward to your company here on FFT Radio, because that's the only place that we are this evening. Welcome to the show. Go. You make a few technical changes, you get them all right, but some other part of the chain lets you down. I always start off with this stuff, don't I? I've got to, really. Everyone, and welcome back. Although everyone this week does not include anybody on YouTube or anybody on Rumble. How about that? So I might as well just talk about this to start off with. It does get a little bit boring though, doesn't it? Hey, starting the shows off like this all the time. I don't know. I hope you're all sitting very comfortably. I don't know whether I am. Anyway, we use certain services to stream to 2 platforms at the same time. I'm still checking it out. If it does pick up, I'll let you know, but it will not play ball. So we had a problem a couple of weeks ago. Now I've been told by someone that I need to get backup services. Yes, obviously I do. I'm backing up my backups and everything, but it's unfortunate. There we go. Anyway, if you're listening on fftradio.com, which I hope you are, that's the place to be anyway. And we've got a chat room there. And if you don't know where it is, if you head on over to fftradio.com, well, if you listen to this, you're probably already there, aren't you, really? Stupid oaf that I am. If you check out the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, there's a little sort of speechy, bubbly sort of thing. And if you click that, you'll see the chat. And I've got all the other chats up as well, so I've been notifying everybody. And that's kind of what's going on. So if you are listening to us on FFT Radio, and I hope you are, then you can, of course, carry on chatting in YouTube and Rumble because it's all there. But we do have a chat room over at fftradio.com. I don't mind. I got so thoroughly organised today that I've got all 3 chat rooms on one tab here on my browser, on one extra screen, so I can look at everything and get completely confused by what everybody's saying, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's Alice has already come in with a comment already. I mean, basically, maybe nobody listens to it on YouTube and Rumble. You're just all there for the chat. I can't say I blame you, to be honest. It's jolly good. Alice says, Paul is having difficulty performing. Yes, it's always nice to start off with a cheeky comment. So it's not my fault, everybody, he said pathetically. But yeah, we use a relay service. It's decided to not play ball. I've been trying it for 40 minutes because we normally get this thing rolling about 30 minutes usually before we go live, and it's just not kind of panned out. Anyway, a shout out to barely anybody in the Rumble chat because I can't imagine anybody's going to stay there. And to the people that are in the YouTube chat, a shout out to you. But of course you can't hear me because I can't beam in. It's as simple as that. So I've put a notice in at the top of both of the chats, basically, hopefully that it'll be read. It's not as nice as being told a thing to do, is it? It will be read. But fftradio.com is the place to go, and there is a chat room there, and you can get a chat account, and you can put your name in there, and I'm looking at it right now, and it's nice and big. It's all been made bigger since last week, and you might not know what I'm talking about, but graphically it was quite tiny on the page, and now it's gone all big. So there we go. Maybe this is in keeping with the change, basically, or a change. I've made a change. This wasn't one that I'd planned for, actually. And I'm feeling a little bit miffed that we can't get through because it is a lively place, and I like to sort of scour all the comments, even though I might not comment on so many of them myself throughout the show. I'm usually totally engrossed and engaged with what we're talking about. But the idea with tonight is to have a slightly different format. So we are due to be joined in hour one by Callie Spell, who also hosts a show on FFT Radio. She's had some incredibly interesting technical problems. I am starting a bit like a techno nerd here, aren't I, with all this kind of stuff? But she's had a few of those, so I don't know what it is, really. There's something going on. It's all gone a bit pear-shaped. So Callie's going to be the guest, hopefully, in about 5 minutes or so when she rocks up. Let me just have a drink of water. I'm so cash tonight. Then in hour two, we've got Helen from Brazil. I hope. She did say she's going to call up. We couldn't think of a name for her, so I just called her Helen from Brazil. Some of you may know that I go back a long ways with Helen, like 42 years, I think it is. It's over 40 years anyway, since we were first bumped into each other working at the same company. She's now down in Brazil. Didn't like the company very much. No, that's a long time back. And then in hour three, Blackbird9 is going to be joining us. So that'll be around about 10 o'clock. And you may be saying, if you're hearing this, maybe this is all appropriate. Where's Eric von Essex? Well, I've kind of given Eric the night off. How about that? This is awfully rude of me. But I have been doing him lots of favours recently. Not like that. We've just set up, or he's about to set up, a new website for Fockham Hall, and I was putting that together for him, or at least the start of it yesterday. So that's turned out quite good. And he's now got lots and lots of work to do to sort of get that up to speed, but hopefully he's going to be doing that over the next week or so. And if you're out there listening, Eric, I look forward to your company next week. I probably would have looked forward to it this evening if I hadn't known that everything was going to go pear-shaped. But it's just a little attempt to sort of like try and break the show down a bit. Any of you that have tuned into Eric's show, Fockham Hall, and this show will know we have pretty much a sort of group ensemble thing most of the time. And it's jolly good. But I just wanted to sort of try something slightly different, if you don't mind. Maybe you do. I'll get lots of feedback about it. If you want to send me any feedback, by the way, you can always email studio@paulenglishlive.com. That's studio@paulenglishlive.com. And I will, of course, weep copious amounts if I disagree vehemently with anything that you might write and say to me. So there we go. That's kind of where we're at. And I see, actually, look, this might actually be working now. Good evening, Callie. Are you there? Ooh.
I'm here. Can you hear me, Paul?
I can. Yeah, I can. Yeah, we can all hear you. It's fantastic. You missed my opening diatribe. You've just come off a show with Victoria Rickson, haven't you? You're hopping from one studio to another.
I am. I've just done a plug, so maybe I could bring some of them with me. So yeah, I've just had a really awesome chat with Victoria. I mean, an hour flew by. I do lives for an hour. I mean, I would have carried on talking, to be fair, but obviously I had this commitment and I jumped straight off. Super conversation with Victoria about how midwifery, the registration, the portal system, how women are portals, the witch trials. I mean, it all ties in. So if we can remember his story, and we are the species with amnesia, as I say, but it's also about remembering her story, because it's the removal of the feminine, and then it's this idea of balance that needs to be restored to end the matrix, really. Super stuff.
Yeah, it is. Victoria's fantastic. I was listening to some of her show last night. It's definitely... I wouldn't say it's an acquired taste. It's a very specialised area of the problem at the moment, although I know she's going to expand it out to cover everything, I think, to do with early years. But let's just not talk about Victoria for now. Let's talk about you, because you're here. And although we've had a lot of technical fun with me and your breakfast show and Callie's breakfast spell, which is cast at 8 o'clock every Wednesday morning on FFT Radio, and is a cracking listen, apart from some effing and blinding in there, which makes me cringe. All right.
I know, and I've really tried to stop doing it. It's less me swearing, but then I realised a lot of the music I then play, I'm like, oops.
I know. I think we're going to have to set up a music censorship clearance desk or something. I mean, I think it's probably all right after 9 o'clock. But of course, I'm a very delicate fellow, and these things are difficult on the ear sometimes. I'm trying to eat my scrambled eggs. Did you hear what he just said? This is outrageous.
I found that a tad of a struggle, really, being so outspoken for so long, and being from Bolton. You know what they say: you can take the girl out of Bolton, but you can't take the Bolton out of the girl. Really, I'm afraid. I do have a potty mouth. I find it very expressive. I have tried to rein it on for breakfast radio, Paul, but it does slip out. It's like I say, I'm blaming the music. It's not me this time. It was Ren.
Yeah,
Ren did
good.
it.
Okay, well, we'll kind of give you a pass on that one. Yeah, I'll need to write to him and say, sir, yours offended of the home counties. So no, it's all good stuff. Bolton. Yeah, Bolton. I mean, I think I might mention to you, I know my sister's this way. She's a sucker for the Bolton accent. She sometimes goes over to Bolton Market. She's in Scunthorpe in Lincolnshire, right? So it shows you how sad things have got. Yeah, it's really sad. But,
Well, Bolton, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of basics, right? Who are you, right? And what do you do? Literally, I'm like a newbie to yours. I mean, I've been aware of you, but I'm plugged into so many things. You can't plug into everything all at once. And one of the things that's been really cool for me with the FFT thing is through courtesy of Mark and all the introductions that he's made, I've just bumped into loads of other people, some of whom's views are at variance with other people. I think this is great. Yeah. And you're one of them. And the only one game enough to do a breakfast show, even though given the way you talk, it should be nighttime. But there's a problem with that, isn't there? Because you like sleeping, don't you?
Yeah. They used to nickname me Granny Spell because I really don't. I don't like doing things in the evening because I'm an early riser, so I'm up at 5:30 in the morning. So by 8:30. Working the way I do with my brain, I'm tired. That's it. I'm kind of done. But, 2026 is such an important year, and so is FFT radio and that ability to keep freedom of speech alive and well, as I always say on my radio show, because that's why I do it. That's why I turn up and do it, and it's gonna be big. I do believe that it's attracting all the best people, Paul. So yeah, I mean, I'm Carly Spell, but I'm not. My real name's Jill. I'm from Bolton. The Carly Spell thing began because I've got a law degree. I'm a lawyer. I didn't go on to be a practicing solicitor. I haven't got my solicitor's practice kind of certificate. I didn't do that, but I am LLB honours. So I studied law at university, but university, uni one, the song, it just wants you to sing from the same hymn sheet to support the system. And I was really aware of that, but I picked it to annoy my old English lecturer. I had two beautiful English teachers at college. One loved me, one hated me. So I got estimated the really, really low grades at college because I was never there. I was a bit of a party animal.
Really? I'm surprised. I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's not changed much, but I'm just getting too old, Paul. The brain is willing, but the body is not.
Time catches up with us all, Kelly.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
So, cutting a really long story short, I then got the highest grades in the college and I went on to study law. And I did all right, but I soon realised that the system just wants you to repeat stuff back at it, maybe with a little flair, but that's it. So it wasn't rocket science to me. Yeah. And and then I was a music promoter for years. I've been awake over 30 odd years. So the Carly Spell bit came because I'm a trained yoga teacher as well. So just before the lockdown, I was just about to start teaching yoga. I was fit as a flea, Paul. And then they pulled the lockdown and I was like, Mother, can I swear? No, Mother.
No, anyway, not on this show. I'm very prim and proper.
And because I was awake for 30 odd years, I knew exactly what that pandemic was from day dot. I knew it. So I spoke out from the beginning. I did videos really on viral theory. I joined like common law groups. I knew basics. I knew that must in legalese meant may. It's an offer of contract. I knew certain stuff, but I always used to see these bailiff videos and stuff like that and think, oh God, I'd love to learn that. Why do they do that? Because really all universities do is train you in legal. They'll talk about equity, law and trust, of course, but and that's still the system chancery, but they don't teach you the truth. Of course they don't. Now it's laced to a degree, but that's it. So I had to go back to my books, but I'm just a nerd and I'm fairly neuro juicy, as they say. So I just got it down, and then I came across a guy called Baron David Ward, and he was my mentor to a degree, and I read every single post.
Now, didn't he pass away a few years ago, Baron David Ward?
Yes, he did, sadly. So I got kicked out of his group a few times. He was, let's say, a testy headmaster, and he didn't appreciate any nonsense. And if you came at him, he used to do this thing on a Friday. We used to call it, he'd have a Friday night cull, probably when he was having a few whiskies, and he just went around deleting everybody. Anyway, I made it up to be admin in his group, but like I say, I was so diligent, I was so determined to learn commercial law that I read every reply he'd ever read or said in 7 years. So when I finally got to meet the man, he was like, "Yeah, Carly, spell." Yes, Baron. And I got to meet my hero. And they say, don't meet your heroes, but he didn't disappoint me.
That's great.
And yeah, I learned he was an angry, Yorkshire man, but the best men bringing down the government, I find are angry Yorkshire man.
We're all bloody angry. I am. I just don't speak like that as much these days. But I've just been invited to go up north. Yet tomorrow I said I can't. I don't have a car for a start, so it makes it a bit. I'm not walking, and so they said, "Well, we'll be thinking about you." I said, "Yeah, not much." And but yeah, they're all like that. Absolutely. Thing I say about Yorkshiremen, I've said it before. We've got chips on both shoulders. That's what makes us well balanced, right? And
I like that.
Do you like that? Yeah, we're always coming up with stuff. And you guys are over there as well. I kind of miss that northern culture of, I've often thought, was it Frank Forthright would be my pseudonym if I ever come to write books.
Frank Forthright.
Frank Forthright. Yeah, and all that. Well, when did you do law? When did you do law? What year was that when you said, I've got a hankering for the law? Because honestly, it's not a common hankering, is it? So,
not really.
It's not.
2000, I went to university, I think, if I'm getting that correct. About 2000. I was a little bit later. I went to uni I think I was about 20. I was a little bit older than being 18, kind of the rest of everybody. Mm-hmm. I was a little bit more mature, not in the headlight, but so yeah. I've kind of. It's weird because I've had my astrology chart done, and I don't mean like just some crap in the the Star newspaper. I mean proper chart, and law is all over my chart. It's in my first house. No matter even if I try to leave it, Paul, it has its tentacles in my DNA. It doesn't want to let me go, and at this point in history, I've got to do what I can do. And hopefully I do it well enough to make a difference, And then, like I say, I've got, there's people with far greater minds than mine, as I say, that are doing some amazing stuff, like Robin Hood, who's, I believe, starting a show tomorrow night with our Toshi.
He is. I just found out about 15 minutes before we went live here. So Gary Toshi, or whatever he's called, we're going to have to get his name sorted out. Anyway, he sends me a message saying, "Right, you're doing a show with me tomorrow night." And I said, "Okay, great." I said, "I do need a few things." He said, "Can it be done?" I said, "Yes." Yeah, we can. So, we're promoting everything here. It's right incestuous around here. But tomorrow night on FFT at 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock, maybe longer, I don't know. Because there's nothing in that slot at the moment. We're going to do a I don't know, a law money fest type thing. He's got to come up with a name for it, if he's going to drive it. So I could come up with one, but it'd probably be, I don't know what it would be. But no, I'm just bumping into. I mean, I've been aware of you and Robin Hood. This is all I know, but you sort of plough your own circles really deep, don't you? And this is one of the things that I'd thought about with creating some kind of a broad tent for people like us, people that ask questions, basically, troublesome people, is that there's so many more of us than we actually probably fully recognize. And it's almost like if you could get them all in a field and look at one another and go, look, we don't agree on everything, but one thing we do agree on is that we are going to ask questions and nail it. And I think that that's the attitude that I think is required. And there's loads of us. And I've been saying to people recently, I said, we've got all the tools that we need to restore things the way that we feel they need to be. We've got all of them. We just need to start using them, don't we? Yeah,
that's literally what I say to people. My latest talk, and if people want to kind of catch me, come and follow me on my page. I put everything up there. But our ancestors have fought and died for what we're already jumping up and down with our pants round our ankles, holding a spoon about. It's already there. Supreme Court cases, High Court cases, before they were all completely corrupt and turned into, banks, the bar run. Even the Supreme Courts now, we have no public courts anymore in this country. So, we should have courts of record. We should have public courts of law where you can have a trial by jury in front of your peers, and actually the jury has the power to nullify anything that is repugnant to the Constitution. So this is what they don't tell us. This is why they want the juries gone. And actually, if you go into a court, like say like a Crown Court, you might have 12 people sat there, but it's actually a jury trial still run by the bar. Mm-hmm. It's a trick. A jury trial isn't a trial by jury. So you can say guilty or not guilty. Guilty comes from the Dutch guilder to pay. As soon as you walk into a bar court, you are presumed guilty. It's not presumed innocent. In a court of law, you'd be presumed innocent. And if someone's making a claim against you, they have to provide the material evidence. It's one of the biggest maxims going. It's quite simple, the law, when you've nailed it down to a meme. And that's what we try and do at the Realm of England. Robin Hood's knowledge is off the charts. That man, he is a dark destroyer, but he's a dark destroyer doing it for the good of the people, you know. So I always say it takes a little dark to defeat the dark, and that man will open the gates of hell and send these devils back. Like, I actually believe that. Yeah. And we are all out to aid and assist him in every way we can. You know, we are I always liken Robin Hood to, I don't know if you've seen Helm's Deep in Lord of the Rings 2. You know,
I'm quite familiar with it. I reread it over the winter. The first time I'd reread it for about 30 years. It was just, I had a blissful 3 weeks. Seriously, it was like meditation. It was fantastic. Yeah, there's something good about concentrating for a long time on a particular thing and just quietly reading away on stuff. But yes, sorry, Helm's Deep. You were going to draw some analogies.
No. Well, you know, it's a lost art, isn't it? Reading a book, like listening to an album. You know, it's a different generation, isn't it?
Oh yes, I used to listen to musical bums all the time. Music albums, I mean, yeah.
But when there's that image of the orc, you know, when he's going to stick the bomb underneath Hell's Deep to break it, like that's Robin Hood. That's him running. And
I hope he looks a little bit more fragrant than that. That was a rather grotty looking creature, wasn't it? But yeah,
he's a big lad. He's a big Yorkshire bar steward. So yeah, if anyone can do it, I really do believe. I mean, it's like what Toshi says, and we said it on my radio show yesterday. You know, never underestimate a group of determined people to change the course of history. For that's the way that it's always happened.
Indeed. So that's the only thing that ever has. Yeah. Margaret Mead, exactly. Not Mead. It's the other one, isn't it? I can't remember. No, it's Margaret Mead, I think. Yeah, it was.
Margaret Mead, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we do really at the Realm of England. We are the vanguard. But the answers are in. We've worked it all out. Well, Robin's worked it out with
do I have to do anything then?
Angry Yorkshiremen.
Have I got to do it? Do I just leave it to you? Have you sorted it out?
Just leave it to us.
Brilliant.
We've sorted it out. But we need the people behind us. We need an army of people behind us supporting us, and then we can finish it. But, you know, it's difficult trying to capture the imagination of people when you've got, like, you know, the likes of Tommy Robinson and all these characters that are just purposefully planted, in my opinion, causing division.
Yep.
Protesting legalese means to accept the terms of the conditions, yet be unhappy about it. Slaves protest. Slaves petition. Petition means to beg. So when you decode the language of legalese and when you decode language full stop, this place is telling you exactly what it is. And that's the key, really.
Yes.
For me.
A few minutes ago, you said that the law is quite easy. Maybe you didn't say exactly that. Okay. But it seems to me that obviously if you went up to a layman in a pub and said, here's Halsbury's or here's Blackstone's, read that, will you? Tell me what you think. It's not going to happen, is it? It's not going to happen. And I'm just tapping back into this thing about reading and the ability to focus and concentrate for a considerable period of time, right? That's what study is, right? To sit down and to focus on and to exclude all the other things whilst you're in that sort of phase of studying stuff. So it seems to me, and this is one of the things that's always been in the back of my mind with radio, and I know we've got these video platforms, which of course have failed me this evening wretchedly, but everybody's ploughed over to the radio, which is cool. So welcome everybody on FFT. Is the communications challenge is considerable because we're faced with a situation, I think, where we've got to pair this really dynamite information, for want of a better word, so that the layman can get it as quickly as we're able to enable him to get it. Do you not think?
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah. I mean, I fought off for ages, if I'm honest, doing shorts, for, Instagram, TikTok, this kind of thing, because I suppose I was up my own arse to a degree. Can I say arse?
Yes,
my
you just
now.
did. Anyway, it's too late.
I was
Now. It's gone.
up my own bottom. Not so much up my own bottom, but I just thought, crikey, to me, it was incredulous who studies 15 hours a day to bring this information, into a condensed point, and people still can't be bothered watching it because they've got the attention span of a flea.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow. Like you can't even be bothered taking, years of research that we've put into a really nice little package. It kind of blew my head a little bit. And I suppose I got a little arrogant and thought, you can all go away. But I did succumb, and they've been very popular, and we've been able to get, like a lot of views on a lot of topics, depending what the topic is. So for my Instagram and my Facebook, I run all those now, because what I like to think I do well, if I can, and people have said this, I do take a lot of complex information and knead it down, and I pop it out as a meme, and it's something then that people can kind of get a grasp on, and people can, begin to empower themselves with it. Now, I don't think that people need to start storming into the courts and waving affidavits and bringing down judges like, the rest of, the realm of England. But what I'm saying is, like, just come and support us. Just come and learn at your own pace. Just come and start to learn the principles, because we make it as simple as possible. And it all falls down on a few key points. It's not easy, the law, really, in that sense, because they obfuscate it. You named a few books there. You've got like Hansard's, Blackstone's, Archibald's. These books cost nearly £1,000 each, and they cost £1,000 each because they don't want us to read them, Paul, and read it. And I have to give full credit to Robin Hood and his team of Angry Yorkshiremen. I'm a godpiece. I get it all, don't worry, and I teach it. So there's like a symbiotic kind of relationship with me and Robin Hood.
Right. He
leads the charge and the storm, and I do the feminine networking and all that kind of thing in the background. So I'm like his Debbie McGee. If he's Paul Daniels, I'm Debbie McGee, and it's my job, like I said, to
he doesn't look like Paul Daniels, does he? Oh, God.
No, nothing like that.
Phew.
He looks like he's huge. He's a big, angry Yorkshire bastard. I've sworn laws. I do apologise.
No, that's... It's okay. What can I do? It's just, there's nothing I can do, everybody. It's just, I'm trying to run a decent house here, but what can I do?
You're too good, Paul. You're too good. I'm just too bad.
I think, though, that thing, when you're talking about what you're doing, the female networking and all that kind of stuff, I think this is the bit that's, it's a key. Every single part, actually, is key. I keep thinking about this with all the sorts of things I do. You go, there's a chain, right? And if any part of that chain breaks, you can't sort of open the door to your house. Do you know what? I'm just using it as a metaphor. You go, well, I did this, and we're unconscious about so many things that currently still work. Of course, there's less and less of those things working in all sorts of areas of our lives. But getting this thing pared down so that these people can just stand with us, it's a bit like saying, don't stand on that side of the street. Just come over here. Why? Just come over here. There you go. We're not going to hurt you. Just hang out. Just hang out with us. Just, that's all we want you to do. I don't understand what you're saying. Nobody does at first. I didn't, right? That's okay. What we're looking for is your attitude that you want your nation back, because someone's got to want it back. And we know it's you. It's almost like, and people do get encouraged when there's a bigger group. I think it's like we are going to hit a critical mass. Maybe we've already hit it or something, but there's going to be a mass. It doesn't have to be everybody, where we gain some kind of a magnetic charge and we become literally more attractive. Literally.
Well, I actually do think that it is about that. I think everything's frequency, isn't it? It's that Tesla thing. And I think all these characters that were given from history, who knows if they're even real? I think they're archetypes, and I think it repeats. It's all about time, the system. It's all about resetting time, immortality, that these elites or these parasites are chasing immortality. I actually believe that they transfer their consciousness into different avatars, and they lord us over time, and that's how they retain this, this knowledge. But it is a frequency thing, I think, and I think it only needs, in the quantum monkey sense, and I can explain what the quantum monkey kind of idea is if people don't understand what that is. But it only takes a small group of people. It goes back to that point, and they talk in scripture in the Bible, and I'm not into organized religion. I always say that religion means to hold back, to thwart, to bind. It comes from the Latin religiare. So religion is a nonsense. It's a division. It all goes to the tree of life, and it's
in contradiction. Don't you think it's in contradiction to the very laws and instructions that are in the manual? It's not. That's all I keep coming. Maybe it's a northern thing. I just don't know. You just end up going to that, right? I mean, because, and it's not. There are loads of people like this. It's a madness. People get hypnotized by the rigmarole of these organized church structures, and you're going, what are you looking at? It's got nothing to do with it in the book. I mean, you're talking about law. I view it literally as a book of law. I mean, all of the common law roots from it. Alfred the Great did him and his daughter, because his daughter, maybe the female networking side of the time, she helped him compile all that stuff from around all the other kingdoms in England and going, what's your best laws then? And they put it all together. And it works if applied. Of course, it's not being applied, is it? But that's the key thing.
No, that's it. We're in, like I say, it's all to do with jurisdiction, and juris means law and diction means words. That's why a judge passes a sentence, because it's all grammatical. And when you've got two or more grammar styles on one document, it's fraudulent. You know, when you start to decode the whole thing, it all relies on fear and fiction, and fear is just false evidence appearing real. And again, you know, there's a frequency to being what you would perhaps call sovereign, I suppose, or sovereign, or because, you know, in scripture it talks of the 144,000, and I actually think that's a frequency. You know, when you study the occult, I've done it. If you watch my early podcast, I'm going, it's satanic. They're all Satanists. You know, I fell in for it. That it was, you know, and that's just the simple way they want you to look at it. But it works on many interdimensional levels, and so does the law. The law is interdimensional in itself. You know, I did a really good podcast with a guy called Gibbo, and it's called The Interdimensional Nature of Law, or something like that. It's on Dark Matters, and we're recording part 2 on Sunday. It's very in depth. But can you imagine, like, we just want to get people to understand the difference between law and legislation at this point. No, I do come in with the occult, and we keep that away from the realm to a degree, because we've got to be able to kind of get it over to the kind of common man. And I don't mean that with any disrespect, but, you know, if I start going like full on woo woo, but it's occult as feck. That system, it is entwined, and you cannot divorce one thing from the other. And I think people don't want to look at it because it's that cognitive dissonance. It's too much. I mean, I get some comments like, you know, I'm obviously mad in the head, and well, maybe I am, but it doesn't matter about information and misinformation when you can read the code, and I read the code. So that's why I'm usually, people go, how do you know all this stuff, Carly? How can you predict what's happening? I said, because it's in the code, they tell you. You know, once you've read the code, it's like they live in it, Paul. You know, it's lifting glasses.
Well, it is really. I've got the glasses, it is, and you know, if you think about small people, and we were all a small people once, weren't we? We were all 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 12 or whatever it was. You know, you're basically conditioned into a restriction of your mental abilities, really. It's why I think people often hark back to the golden years of childhood. Why are they golden? Because you just, you know, obviously with the guardianship of your mum and dad, so that you don't stick your hand in the fire repeatedly, you fool. You know, I've told you to do it once, I'm now going to have to whack you with a cricket bat. Okay, that got it across. But other than that, you know, I don't know what it's like. I mean, we hear reports. You know, I'm sort of in my later years. I'm getting long in the tooth and still surprised that this has even happened. Everybody, what's gone on? It can't be this year. I can't, you know. But I remember as a kid, just basically, we lived near cow fields. I could just go out and do anything I want. No mobile phone. Didn't have a watch. Just, I'll be back for tea. How do you know when it'll be tea time? I'll know. I'll be really hungry. And it was that kind of stuff. And off we went and just did stuff. Yeah, and it feeds your imagination. When you're out with your mates in a wood, or being chased by a cow across a field, or you're hitting cowpats with golf clubs and trying to cover, which is what we used to do. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. It loosens you up. Your imagination is richer. Now it's all completely contained. And it comes down to this thing, I think, you know, about the audience. You know, if you watch things in the past, you could have large political rallies, and you kind of get that the people that went understood what was being said, and what was being said was of a much. I'm still saying that it's not straight. They were bent then, but at least it was more pleasant in the sense that they actually used the English language properly and could address things and knew how to build up to a point. Now, look at what's in there. It's not as if you can even get angry with them. I mean, people will, but they're just literally not capable of doing these jobs. I think there's something like just over 90% of them have never had a real job. Not that I look to politics for any solution at all. I've never voted in my life, but it's part of our lives, whether we like it or not, because it has an imprint on so many people around us, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's it. It's just an absolute theatre at this point. Because again, it's in the words. Poly means many. Ticks, parasites, many parasites.
Yeah.
Government. Govern from governare, the Latin, to control. Men's the mind. It's mind control. This system is insidious. It's dark, and it's older than time itself. Well, it's come from time itself. But once you kind of understand again the language and the law. I mean, if you look at voting, it's always an electrical system. That's why you go to the polls. You've got your negative and your positive. It's an energy harvest. It's a charge. That's why you get a bill going through Parliament. It's a commercial term. It's a bill, just like you get a bill at the end of a nice meal in a restaurant. They put through acts and statutes. Well, statute comes from the Greek statue, which is a dead, lifeless thing. An act is a great piece of theatre. It's all fiction. It's all fake. And they're all on foreign license by the United States of America. So we're under foreign occupation. And our courts are in treason. Our king is in treason. We don't actually have a king, actually, because we've only got a liege lord. He's a head of state, and a state is a commercialised term. So when you put an X in a box, you think you're voting these people in, an X in a box is the mark of the illiterate. That's why they used to call them the opinion polls, because it's a slave's opinion. They don't have to listen to you. You're just voting for a different CEO of a company.
Yeah.
From the City of London, which is the bar. Tony Blair, bar member. They're all bar members. Starmer, bar member. They're all bar. And the bar is
and
the bank,
Fabian's,
and
all of them. And London School of Economics,
17.
and all of that dunghole. Yeah, and Chatham House, everything. They're all thick as thieves, really, which is... I do actually. I mean, thick in both ways. They are. I mean, they're not. They're incredibly skillful at what they do. It's just that what they do, they're very good at a game that doesn't even need to be played. You go, what are you doing? Yeah. I mean, sometimes, why don't you do something useful, like go home and build a toilet or something? But they can't. Well, you can't. I mean, we can't.
They're bred for it, aren't they? They're bred for these positions. We can get into like mind control, MK Ultra, these kind of programs where these people are groomed. They're all related to each other, and they're all put into these positions of power. It's an illusion. Dominic Cummings worked in politics for 20 years, very high up, stated on the record that they get the scripts in before they begin. It's theatre, man. William Shakespeare, the world's a stage, and it really is. And when you get that, like you said, Paul, if we join in with it, we give the acquiescence to it.
Absolutely.
But the system's just an administrative system. People get fearful of the system. They get fearful of the occult because they don't understand it. Now, when you understand the occult and you understand the administrative system, it's just about taking it back. They've just took it. We need to take it back, and we need to stay lawful. And actually, the trusts that are administered, your estate that's been held in trust, and actually what they do sneakily, illegal, unlawfully, under license. Illegal means a permission to do something that would otherwise, means a permission to do something that would otherwise be illegal. They're criminals, and they're giving themselves permission by just rubber stamping weird stuff. And it's just basically like me going to you, Paul, and I've got a big army. Right, what should we come up? What nonsense should we come up today with and pass through Parliament and rubber stamp? Because ultimately, Parliament is not sovereign. Parliament has declared itself sovereign. The people are sovereign. Parliament is not. The Parliament is a fiction created by the people to do state business. That's all that it ever was, but it's been hijacked. And we can see that from the 50s, certainly from the 1900s. But this is why they have to reset history. They have to reset time, and they have to send our men into wars because they have to keep us as permanent combatants to be able to keep us under military occupation. And then they kill all the men in these bankers' wars, these blood sacrifices of our men. I mean, it's evil. Ultimately, that's it. There's no other word for it.
It is, but we've never, although we're talking obviously about a lot of dark things, they're less dark when you talk about them. Exactly. When you begin, it's a bit like going, how does that internal combustion engine work? Well, I don't know, but I've got a spanner here. I'm going to take it apart. Really? Yeah. And we're taking it apart. And people are discovering in this taking apart process that, I mean, you've got to be able to, it seems to me, you've got to have some humility or get ready to be broken in your views. And I think a lot of the people, you do, don't you? Don't you think? I mean, I just think it's the longer one spends studying things, you go, that's that. 5 years go by, you pick up another 3 or 4 books, you go, oh, bloody hell, I was wrong about that. And this pattern repeats over and over and over. But a little goal I have is to be less stupid tomorrow than I was yesterday. That's it. That's all I'm going. I can't tell you whether I actually attain some nirvana of intelligent understanding of all things, but there's a lot of rubbish to get out in there. There's a load of rubbish to get out of our heads.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why they bombard us even more. And unfortunately, and I may be a part of this problem. But every idiot on the street corner's got a platform now, and they're talking utter pants, and promoting very dangerous ideologies. And I mean, people might say that about me. People might listen to me and go, "She's lost the plot, or she's far right," or everyone's got this different perspective of everybody else. And I think that what we do is, and what we can all do well is, we all have a perspective. It's like what my nana used to say: we're all trying to get to the same place on a different buzz, lass. It don't matter how you come to God or the creator or source or whatever you want to call that within you, for the kingdom is within. Just that you're on that journey and that you do it. You pick a path. There's the positive path, there's the negative path, service to self, service to others. But in occult terms, it's always the middle way, because the middle way leads to Neptune and the waters above on the tree of life. And we've been disconnected from the tree of life. We've been disconnected from the tree of life because that's the placenta. That's what's clamped and cut. The placenta is registered. And we fell from grace by sinning or signing on contracts with the devil, with Lucifer, the bar. The bar mitzvah. The bar mitzvah is the Temple Bar, which is the inner city of London, which is the Banks, which is Lucifer. Now, you can call Lucifer, you might think, oh, God, Carly's gone all scripture. But really, it's about hell on earth v heaven on earth. The light of God, or the white light, is actually linked to Neptune. That's why you get this idea of Jason and the Argonauts facing Poseidon. It's all to do with water and breaking waters, maritime waters. Maritime means sea of time. And it's to do with astrotheology of the heavens above, of the land beneath the land is the body, actually, in legal terms and lawful terms. And the sole of the foot sits on the soil of the land, of which we, the people, own the land and the soil and the mineral rights. So these corporations, corp dead, these corporations have come and taken what's ours and sold it back to us. It's as simple as that. And they've done that by a different, 100 different mechanisms, but some big ones being mainly, obviously, the Sete-KV Act of 1666, 666, you do the maths. We are carbon-based, and we are the carbon they want to
They do like their numbers, don't they? They love their numbers.
Oh, they love it.
They absolutely. We love a nice number, say the Masons. We know. Yeah, we love it. Yeah, grow up is what you want to say. What's up with you daft sod? By the way, you can go scriptural on me anytime you like. I'm completely open to all of that kind of stuff, because I still think, there's a thing, maybe I said it when I was on your show the other week. I've mentioned it here loads of times, but it's always worth repeating the good stuff. Henry Ford said, most Christians read their Bible through Jewish spectacles and therefore read it wrong. And it's not just the Bible, but everything is read in the wrong context. I mean, what's the context for living now? The economy. The economy is really, really important. No, it isn't.
Commerce, isn't it?
It's commerce.
Everything on this
commerce.
planet is commerce now. And what they did with there was the first express trust deed by Pope Boniface. And basically what he did was claim the whole planet and everything on it. And that's never been rebutted, you see. But so we have a planet, but they call it the planet. So they change a word and add something, and that's how they do it. And Christianity is of the earth. The Christ is of the earth. It's pagan, but the pagans were the Druids or the old Jews. There were no such things as Jews. J is a Latinized letter. The Jews were the Jews.
Yes.
So the keepers of the Jews, which were portals, were the women, because the women are portals themselves. And again, they came and slaughtered all the wise women. We've just been talking about this with Victoria. She's very passionate about this, and this restoring of the feminine is the balance that's lacking, and which is why we've got all this negativity not being balanced off, not being charged. So the masculine is linear time, it's patriarch, it's domination, ego, empire, and unfortunately, without the feminine to protect the children, pedophilia. This is the dark of Rome. It's like Mordor, really. Like when Gandalf says, "Oh, there's a darkness in the east. We can sense it." We've all been so disconnected from our intuition so vehemently that we can't even see that dark on our doorstep right in front of our face. And for a lot of people, unfortunately, it will be too late when they see it, and people will lose their minds. We are at the end of days, and I don't mean that everything's going to get destroyed. We're at the end of those old days. I am Carly, the goddess of destruction of time. I understand time, and I understand the necessity of the Dark Mother to bring in the destruction to defeat the old. But it has to be done with love, else it's be careful when you fight the monsters lest you become one. I found that recently, Paul. My heart was getting a bit black, and I had to step back and really do some inner work, man. And really get my feminine energy of love again, and feeling but in balance, because the feminine sits between the two pillars of mercy and severity embodied. So of course she's compassion. She loves all things. She even loves the pedos and the animal rapists and all this. This is getting a bit dark, but she dishes severity to restore balance. And that's the key, I think, for the feminine. And that's, her story has been lost. And a big part of my work is called Queens of Chaos. I've wrote a book. It's going to be out once I've edited it and got it all ready. Right. And it's all about this because it all links into legal fiction. It all, links into the LAW, the land, air and the water, but it also links to our LORE law, our spoken traditions and customs that they are completely trying to eradicate so that we can be, malleable in our 15-minute cities and culturally destroyed, really,
Well, that's how they've done it, really. They have. When someone says that something's missing, it's all the glue that they were unconscious about that actually added to their lives. Mm-hmm. So in a way, this is an inevitable point. It's the end of an age. That's what I take the end of the world. It's the end of this age. It feels like it very much. And we've really got quite a scrap on to make sure that they don't get their way. But really, their focal point, that's not actually my focus point. It's that we get into the way, because there is a way, and we kind of know it intuitively and instinctively. But as you were just rightly saying, most of those instincts and intuitions have been gradually suppressed or dismissed by people. Oh, that's just an old wives' tale. I'm going, I'm really interested. Mm-hmm. What was it then? That's what I want to know about. I want to know what the old wives were talking about. I think as well, just coming up as a sort of the sexes, the men and the women, the masculine and the feminine. There's good and bad aspects on both sides. If it is both sides, it's not really. I mean, are we not ideally supposed to complement one another? We have different inherent skill sets. At least I'd like to think that we do. Different areas of sensitivity, different areas of the way our intelligences work and stuff like that. People get very strident about this and really feed this beast, which has been to destroy the family. Because in its best form, civilizations, it seems to me, for want of a better idea and looking at history, the ones that are made up of the greatest number of happiest functioning families are the ones that thrive. Because in the you've got absolutely everything in a family. It's all going on. You've got food to get in. You've got to keep things clean. Dad's got to go out if it is dad and bring it back, and all that kind of stuff. Bring the currency back, not more. Hopefully we'll get rid of all that nonsense as well. And you can see how, I suppose, ever since the Middle Ages, really, I sort of tap most of this back to sort of Henry VIII forward. There's loads before that as well. I'm not dismissing any of that. But in terms of the way that it's affected us, we've been in this sort of period where, I mean, ever since the Bank of England came into being in 1694, this country has had some soldier somewhere around in the world killing someone or we've been fighting for all but 5 years. Since 1694. America must be similar now, in a similar state, ever since they were turned into the world's police.
They have to do it.
Yeah,
they have to do it. They have to keep us in a constant state of war, because as well, banks don't have to reveal their books in times of war. So the double entry bookkeepers, ultimately, it's criminality, it's a mafia. So, I mean, that's what 10 Downing Street was. It's where they all used to go and swap their wares. It was built on the back of a criminal enterprise. Mm-hmm. When we know our history and the men, including yourself, Paul, with their logic, and they have quite cutting logic, especially you Yorkshiremen, as we've said, ultimately they're auditing history. They're auditing these law books. Can you imagine the amount of work that goes into this kind of stuff? I mean, God bless them and Godspeed to them all, and we work with them. And what's amazing is, and I always want to try and give some kind of positivity, because it is a lot of doom and gloom. But like you said, we've got to look at it. But the remedies are there. It's being exposed. I mean, take Christianity. Christianity is an anity, is an annuity. It's a tax system. So they added the anity onto the Christ. Because the Christ said, "For I am the light and I am the way," because he did it. He showed the way and he left the door open. But also it goes back, that's that era of the Christ. Take it further back. We're talking about the dragon mothers. We're talking about, the dragons will return when the dragon mothers do. It goes older, and it's our ancient myths and customs, like you say. We've been taught to not believe it. Like, oh, that's just a nice story. No, these things that it used to be. I believe that's why I use a lot of Tolkien references, because it was Middle Earth.
Yes.
Until it was
right up my street. Absolutely. He taps into so much in that book. It's profound. And in all sorts of ways, and it lingers. And we become enchanted by stories. Yeah. We choose to be, don't we? I do. Yeah. You think about, I mention it here quite regularly, the idea that when you are younger, you pick up a book, and some of them you would dismiss pretty quickly, but the ones that you went for, you got immersed in a whole space. Of course, the bad side of that, it produces nerds, like science fiction nerds and things like that. People that go so far over, you go, this is all they talk about. Look, just calm down a bit. You know, we can, it's great, but it's not all this. But it's an enchant, and we are basically, I think, part of a groundswell of reviving storytelling, because the stories, the campfire stories, have got all the laws and the truths in them, and they're put in a form that everyone can get. This is the thing, you know, technical manuals, law manuals, they're not for everyone. That's why they've been, as you rightly said, that's why they've been designed and priced that way in many cases. Yeah. But there's always going to be that small coterie of people that are going to go, I'm getting right into this. And what's needed then is the intermediaries to get all that information from the guy at the coalface and say, look, mate, if you talk like that down the pub, no one's going to understand a bloody word that you're saying, right? I'm going to act as next. Tell me, I can grok it. I'm going to simplify it, because we've got to be like an advertising agency. I need it on the back of a fag packet. I need it on a poster. I need it on a. You go bang, bang, bang. You got it now. That's it. Oh, is that all it's about? No, there's loads more. But you've got to get the principles. And once they've got the principles, then we can worry about the content. But it's the context that's all out of whack. All out of whack.
Well, can you imagine if we had those kind of advertising budgets to be able to do that? Wouldn't it be fabulous? And this is kind of my argument with, you know, and fair play. I do slightly get the other side of it, where people, you know, go down the, you know, and I think one thing I'd say about those protests in London at the weekend, you know, Tommy Robinson aside, is that, you know, people are actually starting to see the problem. Now, they haven't got the solution. They're using the wrong language. They're flying the wrong flag. I mean, I cringe at it all, really. And they're following a man who's a Pied Piper, and that's the sad part of it. Now, can you imagine if we could get all those people behind us at the Realm? You know, it's like
I'm not. I think imagining it is the first step, Kelly. You image it in your mind, and if you keep imaging it in your mind, it'll start to happen. That's how it works.
Oh, I'm all about that. Yeah.
Well, if everything that you see around you, the houses, the buildings, the cars, everything, at some point they didn't exist, and in the heads of one or two men and women or whatever it was, they went, I want this thing here like this. And they sat down and they imagined it, and then they drew it, usually, because visuals are sort of universal language. And then they showed the drawings to someone else. They went, oh, I think I can help. And things got built. And I'm paring it down. But that's how it happens. That's, you know, you're imaging things in your head. We're doing it all the time. It's just that a lot of people are just imaging, unfortunately, but understandably, a lot of dark stuff, because that's all they're exposed to. So we've got to wean them off of that system. That's our job. You know, that's what I think part of my job is. Wean people up. Don't spend your time over there watching the BBC. I mean, this is an obvious one. That's very, very silly, right? You're not going to. They're very, very silly people, and you don't want to spend. Come over here and spend it with some other silly people, but at least they're on the right track, right? And you'll have more. You'll have more fun. Really, seriously, it'd be a lot more fun.
I agree, and I think the thing is, like, you know, like I was laughing at the beginning when you know, FFT radio, it's drawing all the good people, and it's quite incestuous, but that's because these people who I've met along the way for these 6 years, who are still stood up, still battling, those are the real deal. Like, you know, seriously, I know it's all this like, oh, she's a shill, I've had it all, but I'm not. Else I'd have 1 million followers and I'd be marching around London, you know. I'm not. So I've had platforms, I've been deplatformed, I've been taken down, my algorithm's awful, you know, and I wear that as a badge of honour.
Oh, I've got terrible algorithms. I'm sure there's some cream for that.
They ain't taking me down. That's today's date.
I think, you know, the idea of huge followings on one level is appealing, but it also brings with it an awful lot of problems. And I think one of the things we've talked about here quite a lot is like working in teams of 3, little cells of 3. 3 works. Everybody's responsible. There's no wriggle room. You can't hide. So it's very difficult to get politics going in 3. It really is in that sense. Yeah. And people find out whether they really want to do a thing or not. Because this is, you know, some of us are all in. I'm all in. Because I think when you actually see the past clearly and you've viewed and consumed, and many people listening to this show have done that, you know, the alternative, the view of history written by the so-called losers, you suddenly go, oh dear, I'm really in the poo. And then when you see what they're doing now, right, you go, hey, they're rerunning it. It's poo 22 or whatever. Like, that's exactly it is. It just hasn't changed, has it? It's what we're going through right now is exactly what they did in Russia in 1917. It's no different. It's got different technology around it. It's exactly the same. you know.
And I think that's what the Matrix reveals in its essence. Once, like I say, it's back to the code. It's the zeros and the ones. It's the code of language. It's the fake maths they teach us. It's the counting systems, the alphabets. Alphabet, the first bet. You know, in the beginning was the word. Enochian word spells. The change. You know, you can see the changing of the guard once you know your history and you work it back way, way, way back thousands and thousands of years. This has been going on for a very long time, and it will continue to go on, I believe, until there is a mass awakening. Now, we may be in it, because astrologically we're at the end of an age, but I'm here to break the wheel of time, Paul. I want the wheel of time broken into itself.
I'll give you a shoulder. We'll have a go at that. I think we'll be able to rope an awful lot of people into it. Yeah, I think it's great. Callie, it's been absolutely fantastic having you here. And if you think you're not coming back again, you've got another thought coming, because I'm going to have you back at some point soon, even if it is way past your bedtime, right? So,
some things are worth staying up for, Paul, and you're one of them.
And now you know why I invited Callie on. If you want to I was just going to say, if anybody out there wants to catch more of Callie on FFT, she does a morning breakfast show, which I've retitled Callie's Breakfast Spell, because it's better than show, isn't it? So Callie's Breakfast Spell, it's 8 o'clock till 10 o'clock on Wednesday mornings. Cracking show this week, really enjoyed it. It's a lively start. And you might need to wear your ear defenders if there's any strong Anglo-Saxon words flying around, which unfortunately seems to happen a bit. I'm going to have to speak to management and send someone around to see you on that score, but it's absolutely brilliant.
Paul, you are management.
Okay, I'll have to get in my car that I don't have, so you're in no danger. You're in no imminent danger. You can bend the rules as much as you can at the moment. Callie, it's been fantastic, absolutely brilliant. So,
thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'll be listening in on Wednesday. Hope all things go well with your other projects. And when we get those books, we'll get them on a store on FFT. There's so much to do. There's loads to do. It's quite exciting, actually. It's very exciting. Brilliant.
It's awesome. It's really coming together. And thank you for all your hard work and awesomeness, Paul. It's been an honour. It's been emotional. Thanks for having me. And
yours too. I've got a lovely song here that I'm going to play out with. Right, it's really this hour. I think it's good. I haven't played it for a little while, so. You're more than welcome to sit around and listen to it. It's about 4 minutes long. So Callie Spell, everyone. We've got another guest lined up for hour 2. Helen's in the studio in Brazil, long way away. This is called Lost to the Deep, and I played it probably about 6 months ago, and I like it a lot. It's quite interesting. Here we go.
A wooden world, a creaking hold. The sea was vast, my hands were cold. Mother's hum, a trembling sound. Father's warmth, nowhere to be found. The winthrop sails, they groaned and swayed. A child's small heart so afraid. His cough was sharp, it cut the air. The fever burned with no spare. They spoke of faith, of promised land, but I just held his fading hand. Lost to the deep, he's gone, he's gone. My father fell where waves move on. They cast him down, no grave to keep. I see him sink in endless sleep. Lost to the deep, I'm left to weep. A child alone where memories creep. Ships through mist and brine. The ocean stole what once was mine. His story spun of hills and streams, now drowned in dark and sunken dreams. I pressed my cheek to salt-soaked beams and watched the world through tearful seams. The preacher's words, they stung like rain. No comfort for a child's sharp pain. They wrapped him fast in canvas torn and gave him to the sea. Lost to the deep, he's gone, he's gone. ghost no shore could ever save. The water's cold, it holds him tight. A shadow lost to endless night. Oh, Father, do you hear my cry? Your girl still dreams of your sweet smile. Lost to the deep, he's gone, he's gone. My father fell where waves move on. They cast him down, no grave to keep. I see him sink in endless sleep. Lost to the deep, I'm left to weep. A child alone where memories creep. The sea's a thief, it keeps him still. Its whispers haunt, they always will. A little girl with eyes like stone carries grief for what waves have stolen.
And that was Lost to the Deep by Huntress. I played it a few months ago. I understand it just gets technically more fun tonight that the sound on FFT's gone wonky as well. Good grief. I don't know. It doesn't affect everybody else. I must be carrying some evil sort of energy around here. I don't know what's going on. So give me a shout out, will you, on the chat in FFT or elsewhere if it's all gone ropey. I see that it probably has. I don't know quite what I can do about that. I could sort of stop and restart things, but that's a little bit awkward. So fingers crossed it'll sort itself out. Anyway, here we are for part 2. I'm fed up of having to make those sorts of announcements. But we're joined... that was Callie Spell, by the way, obviously, if you were listening for the first hour. And she will be back. And as I said, you can catch her Wednesday mornings on FFT, sound and technical problems aside. Some upgrades, no doubt, in mind. But Helen from Brazil is with us. So, Helen, hi. Good afternoon. Is it still with you? I think it is, isn't it?
Well, it's kind of late afternoon, but yes, I would consider it that. The sun's just gone down, so it's just coming into evening. But I can hear the sound beautifully. That song was gorgeous. I really enjoyed listening to it.
Oh, yeah, you can hear it here. It's getting beamed out. We've had... I've had too much trouble tonight. We're not going out on Rumble and YouTube for all sorts of reasons, which I can't control. And now the mainstream apparently is playing up as well. So I think I've got some upgrades to make over the weekend. Anyway, for those of you who are all frustrated by that, this show is fully recorded and the podcast will be available in about 30 minutes after the show's finished. So there we go. Anyway, let's not talk about that right now. Just fingers crossed things will pick up. How are things in Brazil, Helen?
Well, they're blooming marvellous, I would say. You know, they're really good. In fact, it was one of those beautiful... It's winter here, right? So it was one of those beautiful days where the sky was just like blue, 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 and it was crispy cold, and not a chemtrail to be seen. So that was very, very nice. In fact, we rarely see them, but we do occasionally here. Even here. Can you believe it? In the middle of blooming nowhere in the southern Brazil.
They're chemtrailing.
The whatever, the fuel, and the shit to keep putting it out on the skies. It blows my mind when I see it over my house here in the middle of nowhere. My goodness me. But yeah, no, it's a beautiful, beautiful day and all is well. And if I didn't actually have a Telegram channel, I'd probably, think I was, that the world was fine.
Telegram is keeping some of us sane, isn't it, really? It's the great thing. Actually, one thing I need to look at is to beam the show out over Telegram because we can actually do that. I just don't do. I haven't done it at the moment. But yeah, there's been so many things technically going on with me and other people as well. I'm just wondering if there's something in the air. But of course, then you think, nah, you're just getting paranoid. Stuff does break and it does go wonky, and there usually is a practical explanation. So there's no point, taking too many paranoid tablets and getting all fretful about it. You just have to deal with it, in whatever way we can. So. Anyway, we had a little sort of text exchange, and there was a couple of things that you wanted to mention, particularly useful for people who haven't heard you before, talking about what you do. What do you do, Helen?
Well, yes, I thought I would because, often when you hear people talking, they say, you need to do the work, you need to clear up those traumas and raise your vibration and, well... Yes, I totally agree. But unfortunately, these same people very rarely give you the solution. And, just talking about it, okay, it's sort of interesting. It can, give you some insights and bring up the stuff that was perhaps hidden. But then what? How do you get rid of that anger you feel at your dad, or the shame you feel at what happened to you when you were 3 or whatever it is? How do you do it? And so that's what I do. So I call myself the emotional cleaning lady. I do it. I say it for fun. I don't actually say
the emotional cleaning lady.
Yes, I'm the emotional cleaning lady. So I come in, and I'm not like the cleaning lady you have in England that you pay sort of £60 to come and spend 2 hours. I'm the Brazilian cleaning lady that comes in for the entire day, and literally lifts up the bed and goes behind the cooker, and every little aspect of your home is cleansed. And I try and do that with people's what we used to call back in the day, Paul. We used to call stuff, to clear up their emotional stuff, their traumas and their emotional woundings and all their negative emotions and so on, which have in the present time often led to things like depression and anxiety and dysfunctional relationships and addictions and all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 15 years, is developing a technique, if you like, which I've called emotional alchemy, whereby I am transmuting negative trauma and emotions into the positive, based on the idea that I consider everyone to be, in essence, perfect. So, we come in, we're perfect, we're like this, sort of imagine like a column of light, all perfect and lovely, right?
Yeah.
Possibly coming in with some stuff from a past life attached already, and possibly coming in with some stuff from our mum and our dad, which we've sort of inherited, but pretty much in good shape. Then life starts to happen, and all this, well, a lot of people, I've been relatively lucky, I guess, as a young child, but a lot of people have some really horrible things happen to them. And what happens is, because they can't deal with that emotion, energetically it gets stuck on the field. So it's a bit like, you imagine this column of light, all perfect and lovely, and then life comes and goes, here, splat, take that shame there, go on. Now take this, your dad says, you're a worthless piece of rubbish, you'll never do nothing, lad.
Yes.
You get that sort of treatment when you're a kid, and it goes
I
splat, have some guilt and some unworthiness, and then it comes, and then your cat dies, and so you've got this real deep sadness stuck in there. Then you've got some, something happens and you're really scared, and you've got the fear stuck in there, and then you've got the anger and frustration at the way so-and-so treated you or whatever. And so what happens is this beautiful column of light gets covered in crap, basically, of a negative frequency. And because it hasn't been able to be dealt with, either because it was fairly traumatic or because it was been sort of chronic, repetitive, and so it's kind of stuck there, because of this thing called the law of attraction, we then, in that state of this, of vibrating out all this negative vibration of victimhood or frustration, anger, all this kind of stuff, is vibrating out into the universe. Universe goes, okay, have some more of that. And so the person who was sexually abused when they were 5, ends up being raped again when they're 12, and then gets a husband who does the same thing and beats them up or whatever. And you go, well, how come that person's so unlucky? Why are they targeted? Why is all this stuff happening to them? Well, it's happening, unfortunately, because of what happened initially. Like I say, it could have come in from a past life, weirdly, but whatever happened initially is generating more of the same.
Yes.
And so then another thing happens, and so that amount of that particular shame, for example, then is now augmented, and so now it's beeping out even more into the universe, shame or victimness or whatever, and the universe goes, okay, and sends more of it again, and you go, what the hell? What's going on here, right? So my job is to clean it all out, is to clean off all the stuff that's on the outside of this perfect spirit, soul, whatever you want to call that, to clean it off, so that, because what's left, and this is why I call it alchemy, what's left is the opposite. The lead is turned to gold, the darkness is turned to light, because we are light, we are all joy and peace and contentment and gratitude and all these, high frequency things. We are that. It's just that we tend to be covered over. A lot of people, most people, to a certain degree, are covered over with the trauma of living in this crazy, whatever it is, three-dimensional, I don't know what.
It is a bit mad,
video
isn't
game
it?
That we're in.
It is a bit mad around here, yeah.
It is a bit mad. It's getting madder by the minute.
Yes,
but,
it is.
Maybe we can talk about why that might be. But anyway, so that's it. So that's what I do with a view to what? Obviously making the person feel better, because they don't want to feel depressed or miserable or angry or whatever it is, because it feels like crap. To have the person feel better, but also then to stop attracting more of that. And by raising the vibration, everything changes. You could be living in the same house, same job, same car, same cat, whatever it is. But everything changes at that point, because you're not vibrating at the same frequency. You're no longer the victim, or you're no longer the addict with all the trauma and the pain. You're just sort of divine you. And this is the crazy bit, right, is when it comes to manifestation, each negative emotion, whether it be the shame or the guilt or whatever it happens to be, acts as a block at some point along the process of manifestation. So we can all manifest. We're all, creative sparks of divine, of source, of creator, God, call it what you like, right? We're all divine aspects of that, and we can create. That's what makes us different to, creatures in the dark side. We can create from nothing. We are potentially, we can create whatever we like, because we live within actually a sea of potentiality. And when you clear away all the negative stuff, it unblocks that ability to manifest, because then you're not we're almost manifesting, but you're not generating and manifesting all the crap that's previously happened.
Yeah.
You're starting from a clean slate, and then what happens is what you focus on with love and courage and peace and all those emotions manifests. It comes about because, for instance, if you're in a state of fear all the time for whatever reason, if you're in a state of fear, well, you're kind of like the bunny rabbit in the headlights, and you can't set an intention. And that's the first step of manifestation, is an intention. Not like, oh, it would be nice if, that's not an intention. That's just that's just a waste of time. An intention is, I'm going to have that. Mm-hmm. You've experienced that, Paul. I'm going to have a radio show.
I did once or twice.
I'm going to do this. Yeah, once or twice, exactly. You just have this great idea, and you go, I'm going to do that, and you just know it, and that's an intention as opposed to just some passing. It'd be nice if I had £1 million.
Yep.
Well, yeah, but why? Whatever. But it's all very well. But if you're in a state of fear, you can't set an intention, because you're like, you're just like, you're not even functioning correctly. You're in your fight or flight. Or if you're feeling guilty, actually, and it's not even the fact that you've done something, but if you feel guilty because you've been made to feel guilty because you were abused or mistreated, or your dad told you you're a little shit or whatever. If these things are there, if you're guilty, well, the psychology of guilt is then you will be punished. And if you're punished, you can't be a creator. You can't set an intention and manifest things. You should have nothing and be punished, right?
Yeah.
So you see how it goes. And then if you're angry, you can't make a plan. And if you're anxious or in a state of shame, you can't take action. And so it goes like this. So once you clear out all the stuff, then suddenly you can manifest. And so all the blockages to doing what that person wanted to do, or having that relationship that they wanted, or having the lifestyle that they hoped for, suddenly starts to happen, and we realize who we actually are. And you said earlier, maybe there's some entity, interfering with the technology. And then what happens is you raise yourself above the realm where this darkness exists. And you can see it all around us at the moment. The darkness is really powerful. And I think they've opened the gates of hell, quite frankly. But anyway, it's sort of really unleashed itself on the world at the moment. But the trick is not to be scared, not to be angry, not to be anything. Just like the Buddhists say, you just accept what is, right? And you don't get upset about it. You just keep living your life. And if we can do that and stay buoyant above this morass of negativity, we're out of their range, honestly. We move out of their range. And that would be, my idea of the, of enlightenment, and also, the transitioning of this earth into something into something better. So that's not so briefly, but anyway,
that's good.
That's really what. Yeah,
good.
That's kind of what I do, and I kind of. Well, I've just written a book on the subject actually, because I felt that I'm 65 now, and I thought, well, when I'm no longer here, it'd be quite good to have it at least written down.
Oh, you'll be around
somewhere.
for years. Yeah, I think there's all these things that we'll be 150 before we pop our clogs. I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing. No, I'm not saying that we necessarily will, but you sometimes think about your lifespan and think it's just getting interesting, and you pop your clogs after you've got through all the middle years and stuff, and you go, oh. Right, now I've got some stuff, because I didn't have any stuff when I was 12. Now I've got some stuff,
right.
So sort of domestically things are working okay. I've got time. There's lots of things I want to think about. Oh, no, I'm going to croak it. It's a bit...
I know, but it's set up that... Well, I think we were designed that way. I think the old Anunnaki, I think they did that on purpose. I think, we did have lives... Oh, well, you look in the Bible, some people were living, 1,000 years, 600 years, whatever, and the years get less and less and less. And then I think, it's designed that way so that, once you've achieved a little bit of wisdom, you can't cause too much trouble to the system.
Yeah, they don't want old wise people around that respect your elders and all that kind of stuff.
No, don't want any of those. That's why you got to get your booster pull. Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
Go and get your 7th booster, mate.
I mean, I think maybe in the past, I think maybe in the past people just naturally respected their elders because their elders naturally knew an awful lot more. And it was valued. Yeah. It wasn't a competition, whereas everything has been segregated and we've been made to compete with one another in everything, subtly, almost, imperceptibly to so many people. We're all competing for currency. We're not calling it money anymore because it isn't money. Okay, so we're all competing for so-called purchasing power in this wretched system, and then the sexes are competing with one another now for jobs and all this stuff. It's all completely unnatural twaddle, and people go, "I've got more money, or I've got more currency, therefore I'm happier." I don't see it at all. It's not what actually happens. You lose touch with that sort of spontaneous connection with being alive, and it's all about duties and responsibilities and fretting about losing your yacht. What if I don't keep the payments up on my yacht? I won't have my yacht anymore. And they just, and then they go crinkly and old and they become more curmudgeonly in a terrible way. And then they end up running the world. And it's a reflection of their particular sort of worldview, which is, for us, I think, impossible to change for those people. They've got too much evidence in their back pockets that they're doing the right thing according to the game that they're playing,
they are doing the right thing according to the dark game of the demonic realm. They are doing exactly the right thing, which is to do what the demonic realm wants them to do, to keep us in this constant state of producing what we call loosh, that negative emotion that I was talking about is called, one of the words for it is called loosh, which is feeding these horrible interdimensional critters that live in the astral realm. And, I think they've always, well, let's say always, put it this way, there's a whole other question, but they've been here for thousands and thousands of years, and they've set us up in this system in order to create the loosh. And we're just starting to figure it out that, hang on a minute, this system is totally inhuman. This creates the opposite, having a banking system with debt and all that. I mean, it just creates constant poverty. It just creates a sort of transference of wealth from the people that do all the work to the people at the top. But those people at the top, they're no longer people, in my opinion. They are these interdimensional beings that have taken over the human body. And, with all this Epstein stuff, a lot of people have suddenly started to question this and start to realize that, demons and all this kind of Satanism is a real thing. And these people at the very top, they allowed themselves to be taken over. Mm-hmm. It was all part of the deal. Yes, I'm going to kill this baby and eat it and do these horrible things. And in exchange, you're going to give me all the power and money and, all the stuff, all the yacht and the house and the, girlfriend, whatever it is I want. I'm going to get it very easily. But the stupid thing is these people could probably get a perfectly nice life just by doing some work. But no, they get caught up in this ridiculous thing. But they're being used. I mean, those people, they think that they're going to be all fine and dandy. No, it's like It's
No,
like
they're in a lot of trouble.
I don't know.
They're in a a lot of trouble, which I guess they're insulated from at the moment because their immediate lusts and desires are being fed, and of course it makes them extremely compliant and easy to do their master's bidding, which is what they do. But they're almost like in a worse state than the masters, who've got no chance. I hate that word. I shouldn't have used it. But the guys in charge, I don't think have got any chance of recovery. Not out of this particular space.
Not
that's
in this
just
realm.
a thought.
No. I believe that's true. In the 3D, if you give up your soul, that's pretty much all we've got. You know what I mean? It's like, are you nuts? You're going to give up your soul?
Oh, I don't need that.
In order to get one.
I don't need that at all.
Of,
why would I need
one
a soul?
lifetime of having an expensive car and a posh house? It's like, really? How very odd. But, people do it and so. But again, I don't know. I think a lot of these people, I think it's possible that there are a few people that get born that totally psychopathic. They're just the perfect vehicle for some demonic entity from day one. You occasionally have that. But most children of these, it's always the same families,
Yeah.
Most children in these families are traumatized from the moment they're born. You get 3-year-old, give it a kitten, make it fall in love with the kitten, and then strangle it in front of them or chop its head off or something. That's what they do to these poor children, and it goes on from there. Obviously, it's disgusting, but they what they're doing is they're causing this trauma, and I was talking about earlier, on a massive scale in these children to ensure that they grow up totally messed up and emanating all this negativity. And if someone is emanating nothing but negativity, well, guess what? They're a perfect medium for these entities to come and take over.
Yeah.
It's done on purpose. That's why the mother's always removed. Like traditionally, these families would have a nanny. Mummy's taken out of the picture. She gives birth. You practically only see her at tea time for 5 minutes, and then nanny looks after you. So you don't have a mother, really. And then you get sent to boarding school in England, like at 7 or something. So you're sent away where you get buggered by the older boys and beaten. And this is what happened in England, And then those people grow up to be, just like their parents, perfect vehicles for they're like the intermediaries between the dark realm and here.
Yeah.
Doing their bidding, creating their wars, creating their bloody ridiculous debt system, creating the pharmaceutical industry that kills people, all the stuff that we know about.
Well, you put a post up, didn't you, the other day on the we mentioned Telegram, but on the Telegram group about the Anunnaki thing with regards to, and I'm familiar with Sitchin's work because it mentions Zachariah Sitchin. I read that about 20 years ago. I think there's other books that are probably better than that, but I think he's not bad.
There are better than that.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably pretty well known. He picked most of his material up from other people as well, as everybody does. I mean, people say this is a bad thing. I don't know quite how you're supposed to work it all out otherwise, but it's I'm open to all of it. I reckon that the essence of all these stories exists in all of these stories. It's just that they're spun in a slightly different way. But it puzzles me why I don't know everything, Helen. I'm serious. You go,
I know.
Why is it I'm bumbling around? I don't even know what I am. This is ridiculous. Something amazing has created me. And then you start off at that point, you go, well, I don't even know how my organs work, actually. And even if you described it to me, that just because I understood the description, that doesn't explain why they work. They work, don't they?
Yes, what the life, yeah, exactly. No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And it go, so there's a bit like, I'll create these creatures and they'll be kind of clueless. You go, why would you do that? And one of the thoughts I mentioned the other week was, are we just some great big entertainment show for gods that were bored out of their heads? That, this is no good. We can't build any more mechanical things. Let's build a crazy creature that goes off, tangents and stuff. It'll be really fun to watch. I don't really mean this, by the way. It's just sort of one of these sad little thoughts I have every now and again. Yeah. It is a bit of a puzzle that everything's so puzzling, but I suspect that in the past it wasn't. And so a sort of one of the things that they do is to create this confusion And yeah, I do think that we've got all the defense mechanisms to deal with it. It's just that we're in a process, I suspect, on a larger and ever-growing scale of realizing that. And people are applying their brains now to things and going, ooh, I really can do my own independent thinking. It's not very good, but this is only day one. I'm sure it'll get better. Because it's true, you know. It's not, is it? You know, you go, do you remember all that rubbish I used to think when I was 20? How could you think that? Well, given circumstances, I was likely to think that, wasn't I? You know.
Well, you listen to your school teacher and you listen to the BBC, or what else was there?
Oh, Mr. Newton, my English teacher, was magnificent, Helen. He was great. I've got some teachers that I still have an abiding fond memory for, and others which is the complete polar opposite of that. My chemistry teacher being case in point, who really, chemistry is amazing. It's the building blocks of existence, right? You wouldn't have got that from his class at all. There was no inspiration. Here's the context, lads, for what we're going to do. Right. Everything you see is made up out of all this stuff, and we're going to find out how it all works. And right, count me in. None of that. There's nothing to put fire
my chemistry was exactly the same. It was just, today we're going to mix this with that, and it's going to turn blue, and then...
Why are we doing that?
I think my last chemistry exam, I think I got 18%. I was totally
it's a little bit more than I got.
That was bad. Yeah, I didn't understand it at all in those days. I was like, what?
Oh, it's just I shudder thinking about it. Warm afternoons at the end of the sort of, in June before the breakup and everything, in this boiling hot laboratory with this man droning on, and everybody trying to sort of throw sodium or whatever it was into the water to make it explode, and stuff like this, and Bunsen burners, and just the whole thing. I'm just sort of shuddering thinking about it. I learnt nothing. And yet, when you look at sort of occult philosophy, hermetics and things like that, and what the Greeks did, I mean, the Greeks, through logic, simply proved the existence of the atom. Which is amazing stuff. And there's also, you also sent a clip in, this is just tapping through to something else. You sent a clip in from Catherine Austin Fitz in fact, I played it last week. Etta Volk was in the last hour last week, and I put it on. It's an 8-minute clip, and I realised it was a bit too long, but the first 4 or 5 minutes were the bit I wanted to get across. You probably remember it. She's being interviewed by some bigger podcaster than this show. There are such things, unfortunately. And he was... At the moment. He was shocked when she said that basically there was, demonic and angelic influences at work, and she absolutely meant it. And he was like, oh, yeah. Really? What? Wow. And she's going, yeah, and it echoes what you were just saying a few moments ago, that these guys have strayed too far into the dark, and I don't think they're ever going to get out of it. Or at least I can't conceive of it. Maybe they're, I've often thought that God's patience is almost infinite. I like that as a phrase, almost. Not quite.
Yeah.
Almost infinite.
I don't think that. No, I think once you've gone past a certain point and the entity's taken over, these people, they kind of get hollowed out. Mm-hmm. You know those insects? There's a certain. This is sort of a grasshopper, I think, that gets something lays its egg in this grasshopper, right? And then that thing grows inside the grasshopper, and the grasshopper gets eaten. Yeah, it's like Alien. It gets eaten from the inside out, but the grasshopper walks across the grass and plops itself back in the pond, right? Which is where these aphids or whatever they grow, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's not actually. It's the thing has taken over. Probably, I don't know if it's brain or whether it's just mechanical stuff. But this thing walks across the grass, but it's dead. It's completely dead. There's something else operating within it. And I think these people, like the sort of Bill Gates of this world, or the Trumps, or the whatever, or the other twit that you have in England. These
Which other one? There's so many to choose from. Which one?
I know. There's thousands of them, I tell you.
We've got a bad case of Twitteritis around here. They're just all twits. It's unbelievable.
Twits, yeah. Oh my God! But they are. They're literally been they're hollowed out and taken over completely, and so that's it. They've gone. There's nothing left. People say, "Oh, you can't kill it. You can't destroy a soul." I have to disagree. I think you actually can destroy a soul. Spirit's something else, and not everyone. I know this is maybe everyone doesn't agree. Not everyone has a spirit, in my opinion. There are things called NPCs and all of that.
Yes,
but.
Probably. There probably are. I've mentioned it before. Eleanor Blavatsky.
But the soul, which is the thing that...
Yeah, Madame Blavatsky,
Yeah.
She was involved in an
she
event.
Spoke about that, right?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, a few years before her passing, she was witnessing people that had no spark in them, literally through one of her guides. And his explanation was that these were creatures that had been created a long time ago during the decline period of Atlantis, where they were trying to create a slave race and they couldn't put a soul in them. But then it all depends on where you think the soul is. I don't think it's in the body, you see. So I think it's almost like a radio transmitter somewhere else. It's got to stand well back.
No, it is. No, it is. Well, the spirit, I think, is completely outside of this. The soul does mostly abide in the body.
What's the difference,
That's
Helen?
the thing that makes your organs function. That's the thing that is the life that turns this, mass of atoms and proteins and stuff. That's the thing. So, yes, and you can, I don't know. I forget where I was going with that. But anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Well, I was just thinking, what's the difference between the soul and the spirit?
Well, how I think of it is the spirit is outside of this matrix that we're in, and the matrix includes the astral, by the way, which is where these entities live, and it's where the fake heaven is and all that. So the spirit is outside of there, and I think these spirits, we were sort of attracted into this realm at one time, way back, when it was, hey, come and try this new game we got. It's called 3D. It's super cool. You get to, do kissing things and eating things and having fun and swimming in the sea. And it's really great, right? Because 3D, it's kind of different, right? Mm-hmm. So we said, okay, let's go. And so we were attracted in. But then I think what happens is all archons then just slowly just closed it down and put a grid over it. And then ever since then, we've been dying, being reprocessed, being reprocessed, and we're just in this figure of 8, like the symbol of infinity, which is absurd, because if infinity wouldn't be a figure of 8, it would be a line which stretched forever.
Would it?
But anyway, so we just we die. We go to the light. They say, "Oh, you were a good boy. You should go back and help the others." We go, "Oh, okay, then." Pop, off you go back down there. They mind wipe you, mind you. This is the bit that got me interested in it. I thought, this is interesting. And they go, "Oh yeah, it's all for your development. It's all so you can develop." Really? Okay, so why have you just mind wiped me? So all the stuff I just learned and all the evolution that I just made is completely gone. And this time you're stuffing me in a family where I am going to be raped when I'm 3 and then turn into a prostitute when I'm 25 and then be dead of heroin by the time I'm 26. What exactly did I learn from that? Nothing.
Well, I don't. It's a big question. I mean, it's massive. I think a lot about memory. I remember to think about memory. I do at least remember that and what it actually is. And is it, in some cases, it's a burden. It's actually like carrying around a lot of baggage. I mean, let me try and put a positive spin on.
With me, my love.
Well,
you
maybe I
do. With me.
I'm okay though. I'm fine. I drink cups of tea. I work like a monkey. It's great. I'm quite happy at the moment. I'm trying to not get too big for my boots, even though they are size 12. And but I think just the mind wipe thing that you mentioned. One thought that I have had is, if it is in a positive sense, as if we are stones being polished down here. That's just one way I think of it. And you go, look, you're in for the long haul. How long is that? Well, forever, actually. And it's always going to be interesting, which means there's always going to be the dark and the light. There has to be. The light comes out of the dark because you can't see it otherwise, unless it's against a background of darkness. And you get into all these sort of philosophical understandings of things, which are extremely enriching and nourishing, actually, in terms of thought processes. But if it's the case that you had done clumsy, stupid things or whatever in the past, the idea is the reason why you're not going to remember that stuff is you won't learn what you need to learn in this edition of your life. In this particular chapter, right, you're going to be, it's as if I've often thought, before you go down here, right, what, I'm going down there to be a baby? Yep, that's right. And what will I know? Not much, mate. You won't even remember this conversation, but we can talk about everything now. You're going down in about 15 minutes. Really? Yep, we think so. We're looking at the clock. Your mum's ready. It's all about to go. And you're thinking, okay, they just say, you're going to go down there and learn some new stuff. And you have to have that openness of everything so that you learn and pay attention to the things that you're really going to pay attention to. Because if you go down with a lot of received wisdom, or what you consider to be wisdom, having led what must have been to some degree a slightly flawed life, unless there are people that live perfect lives, whatever that might be. And I think in a way we all do, actually. I think that it's perfect. It's just sometimes it's perfectly awful as well.
Yeah.
But you have to say it's only the hard lessons that teach you stuff. I mean, I'm serious. It's the tough stuff that you never forget. You don't forget that. And you go, that was really stupid. I'm not doing that again. And when you're young, you do a few of those things, like put your hand in the fire or whatever. Actually, I never did, but my brother did, and he never did it again. And stuff like that. So it might be a positive to it, that you have to come down fresh as a daisy so that you're like a blank slate. But as you move through life, it's as if you do tap into other things. Maybe it's just a part of being a more receptive and sensitive antenna and receiver for wisdom. Isn't that what we're kind of looking at? It's one of the things I'm kind of looking to do, in between making cups of tea and doing this and all sorts of other things. That's part of it, really. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put a positive spin on it, I guess.
I think that there is, by the way, well, I can sound a little bit doom and gloom sometimes, but I can appreciate it. But I love my life, and it's super fun, and I've done many kind of things in my life, but where I see the problem is because I believe that we've been sort of hived off. I think that we can grow from it, and you are and I am and lots of people are, right? I think we can use this time to its advantage. I think that we can, right? We can learn from it and do all this stuff. However, I still believe that we're sort of trapped. This idea of the, the sort of prison planet idea that we've been sort of hived off. And it's the Gnostic idea. If you read any of the Gnostic stuff, that there was a sort of fake copy of the
demiurge.
Original. Yeah, the demiurge created this bad copy of what was the original Earth, and we've got caught into that, and it's not. We are still, as spirit, we are still on the path of learning and all that, and evolving and using this opportunity to grow. However, the context of this place now, as the shit copy that was made, isn't that. It was taken over by these archons, call them what you like, whatever, the demiurge, who are using this bad copy with us stuck in it in order to produce energy for them to feed off. Because without it, they can't exist. Because if they've separated themselves from source, if you like, they don't want to connect to source, right? So, but they need energy, and they can't take our love. Well, maybe at the top end they can, but most demonic entities can't live off, gratitude and love and peace and all those feelings. They have to feed off negative emotions, which is why every single aspect of life in this ridiculous matrix has been inverted, so that it produces the maximum amount of loosh for them. Which is why the education system doesn't educate, the medical system kills you, with politics, they just want to kill you as well, they're not there for your benefit. And everything's a lie. I mean, once you obviously, we've been into this sort of conspiracy stuff for a long time, and but it turns out, as it happens, that everything we were told is a lie. The moon, going to the moon is a lie. Why wars start is a lie. In my opinion, yeah, it is. And everything is a lie. There's not one thing that's not been inverted. It's the opposite of what they say. History is all bullshit. Everything, in order to create maximum negative emotion. Now, that being said, like I say, this is the game that we got ourselves embroiled in. But I do think that we can still use it in order to really, by transmuting that, by being able to transform ourselves out of that. That's amazing, So yes, I think that both are true. We are stuck in a prison, being eaten alive by these freaking lunatic, demonic entities, and we can also use it because we are way more powerful than we have been told. Because, of course, that's another lie, that we're just some, You know, it was just some accident, and
Yeah.
you know, we evolved from an amoeba into an ape to ridiculous bullshit. All this Darwinian crap, patently not true. So anyway, that's so I see both are true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we can use it, but that's why it behoves us really at this time when evil seems to have got really out of balance. I mean, I think it was probably set up as yin and yang, you know, the sort of equal, you know, some sort of balance. It seems it's gone way out of balance, and I'm sure it will, you know, in time the pendulum will swing back, but right now it's way out of balance. But the good news is, the more pressure you put on a human being, the more you squeeze it up against a wall, the more likely that human being is to suddenly connect to that divine aspect of them, and suddenly poof, they become an incredible, powerful force. And so in that level, it was good. The shitty experience allowed that spirit to come into its own. So, yeah, I think they're both true. But me personally, I'd like to get out next time. I really don't want to get born into a world. Yes, I don't want to get born. Can you imagine? Say I live another 20 years, right? 20 years from now, what will happen? I'll probably be born into a bloody plastic womb.
No.
Been, you know, like the
we'll have circumvented all of their silly plans by then.
Oh, I hope so.
We'll be all skipping around. We'll all be working like peasants and loving every minute, covered in pig shit and stuff like this. I'm going, this is all right. Doesn't breakfast taste great again? Yeah, it does. No more plastic and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, all of the things that they do. The whole idea of hiving off energy from human beings is just as above, so below, right? So what we've got down here, the negative aspect down here, is that's how governments and all human authority systems work. They suck in the attention of the congregation, the electorate, whatever the name is for the gang, and they say, we know best. We know how to organise it and make it better, honest. And yet you see no evidence for that. There is none. We've got, it just goes on and on and on. You know, apparently technology was going to actually ease everybody's workload. It's not done anything of the sort.
Not at all. No, exactly. You saw that, I presume you saw that little video that was around this week, you know, where the guy was talking about, you know, the sort of medieval times where people had, you know, what do they have? Like 180 days holiday a year. They had 2 hours. This was just, you know, the peasants, you know, so they were kind of slaves in a way. You know, they had 2 hours for lunchtime, you know, 180 days of holiday a year. And, you know, they had great food and they were outside and they were healthy. Now, I mean, some people have to work 3 jobs, you know, and they have some people have no time for themselves. It's just disgusting. And they say, well, I always joke about America. I used to live in America, you know, and my ex-husband.
So you did.
You know I did. You did it. You know I did. Anyway,
America,
but my
where's
ex-husband, bless him, US of A. Anyway, my ex-husband used to call it the land of the free and home of the slave. You know how they go, the land of the free and home of. Once we went to some bloody, oh my God, it was in Spain actually. Went to some expat American Thanksgiving, and they all stood up. And they're such idiots. And they told this story about how these nice Indians and the Pilgrims got together, and it was all a load of shit, right? But anyway, and then they all stood up and they're singing this thing, and the two of us are singing at the top of our lungs, the land of the slave and home of the or whatever, which way around. Yeah. And they never invited us again. I couldn't understand.
No,
why.
really.
But anyway,
it's a bit rude of you. Our next guest, Frederick's from America. He'll be very cross. He might not be, but he might be. He might tear me off a strip when he comes on. No, that's absolutely fine. Well, every group, every nation, every tribe has its founding myth, and in a way, you need them as a sort of an orientation guide to who you might be down here. Of course, everybody goes, "No, we're all one." I don't say that because I don't see any evidence that we're all one at all, and I don't even know why you'd even want to be. What's the point?
Just marry the homeless guy down the road then, or.
Yeah.
What difference does it make? No, we're not all one.
No, the natural world reflects a higher law base, and people ignore it at their peril. And unfortunately, many are. And that's, you know, to a great degree, that's why we're in so much trouble, because people have become spiritually and intellectually rudderless to a great degree, and by design, of course, because they need to suck your attention out of you. Pay attention to this. I mean, what was coming up next week? It's gibberish. The whole thing's a complete waste of time. And it stops you actually building that pig pen that you need to build. Oh, I've got to worry about this. I wouldn't do that if I were you, right? If your number's up, your number's up. I'd forget about it. If they're going to drop bombs on us, they're going to do it, right? They're not going to do that because we're still of some use to them in their worldview. And, the idea of being able to talk to them and get them... chaps, would you mind awfully just changing your mind about this? That's not going to happen.
No. I think the solution is to stop listening to them.
Stop feeding it. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, so stop listening to them. Stop doing what they say and just do what is the right thing to do, which is kind of why I'm here in Brazil. And I don't have a pig pen, actually, but because it just sounds a bit stinky. But anyway, but I do have an amazing chicken coop with about 70 chickens, and I've got about 20 ducks, and at the moment I've got four turkeys, but she's sitting on. I got lady turkey sitting on about 8 eggs. So I get some more turkeys, and we got fish in our ponds, and
nice.
we got food growing, and we got bananas everywhere. In fact, I've just actually. I say we, it's the royal we. My guy that works for me, he's just planted 96 banana trees.
Yes.
And then in a few months, when they get a little bit bigger, we're going to be planting 200 coffee bushes.
Are you? So
I'm going to have a coffee and banana plantation as well. And so I'm just getting on with it. I'm like, all this talk, the latest pandemic bullshit. If they manage to get it off the ground, which I'm not convinced they can, because there's too many people just going, oh, what a load of bullshit. But if they do somehow get it off the ground and they say, oh, you can't do this and can't do that, I don't care anymore. Yeah, I've got this huge area of land here with some jolly good chums that are living here with me. I've got my food. I can walk around miles with my doggies on my own land, not miles, but quite a long way, and. I'm like, I'm not going to play it anymore. I don't want to play their silly games. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to do this. I'm done. I don't care. They don't scare me.
The baubles that they put before us are losing their seductive appeal.
God, if I never go into a shopping mall again,
yeah.
Hopefully I never will. Funny enough, last time in the shopping mall was about 3 years ago. I was going to try and buy these boots for some reason. Anyway, I went to this shopping mall, and I was standing there. All of a sudden, I started to feel really nauseous, and all these lights were beaming down on me, and there was all this Wi-Fi. And I suddenly turned to Jim, and I goes, we got to go. I've got to run. I've got to puke. He goes, what should I do with the boots? I don't care. Just drop them. And I just ran as fast as I could out of this shopping mall. I was like, oh my God, I'm literally going to puke. I feel so bad.
Right.
So I've never been back, and I probably never will go back into one of those places. I go to a little local town, which I have, where I go into little shops run by little people that own the shop themselves. It's not some, chain or whatever. And I'm just very happy, and I don't care. And if someone's, oh, you can't go here anymore, you can't. So what? I've had a great life. I've lived in all different countries. I've been to thousands of amazing restaurants. I've made love to lots of people. I've travelled all over the place, been to loads of beaches, been on yachts, been on, I don't care anymore. I'm like...
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, well, it was good. That's why I say I've had a great life, and it's still having a great life.
Yeah. Anybody that's growing bananas and coffee plants is having a great life. It's fantastic. Our house here, Helen, we go through about 8 bananas a day. It's mad. The main thing, I'm going up the shop, bananas, that's all anybody wants. We're like monkeys. I mean, I've got a little monkey here on the screen, as you can see, drinking tea.
Yes.
I'm beginning to live off tea and bananas. I don't know whether that's very good for you, but I feel okay on it at the moment. So
okay.
It's not bad.
I'll tell you what, have you tried dehydrated bananas? I have a dehydrator, because we have, when we have bananas, we have like the entire, what do you call that, the whole
banana, the skin.
Well, no, you know what I mean, the whole thing, not just a little bunch like you get in Sainsbury's. It's like
you get everything, don't you? Yeah, you get the lot.
Well, the whole, it's like hundreds of bananas.
I'll need photographic evidence, Helen, at some point soon. I want a picture of you with a towering banana tree over you or something. That'd be great.
Yeah, no, I can do that. But anyway, so when we have them, there's like ridiculous number of them, and so I've got a dehydrator, right? And I put them in, I cut them in half, and we've got all sizes. We've got ones that are the size of your little finger. They're so cute, and we've got these. They're all different sizes, and we've got some red ones with red skins. But Brazil has loads of different bananas. It's great. But I slice them up, put them in my dehydrator for about 24 hours. My God, they are so good. And I put them in a jar, and I a bit like you, I eat about 10 a day. I snack on them. I adore them. So hopefully it is good for you. I think it is. Lots of potassium and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of potassium. It's nothing compared to just spooning potassium straight into your mouth, which I do. So we've got a big jar of it. Oh, I'll have some of that. And that's pretty good. The other thing I'm glugging is black seed oil. You're supposed to have a teaspoon, but I can't be bothered anymore because the spoon gets so oily. So I'm the only one in the house. So it's like drinking liquid dirt. It's the most aggressive sort of tasting thing on your tongue. I love it. It's really rough. I love it.
Very good for you, but very good for you, yes.
Yeah.
I have some. I need to get back into it, actually. You're right.
Somebody put me onto it, said, cures everything except death. I'm going, okay, I count me in. I love it. Yeah. I've also got some things which are the extracts of beef liver. They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. I've got the energy of a 58-year-old. No, I feel much more zippy. It's tremendous. Yeah, I've been doing. I can do 40 press-ups in a row. I'm just really going for it at the moment. I'll probably keel over at some point. Maniac
well
over
done.
does it.
They know there's extracts of liver and all that, and gallbladder and whatever it is. They're fantastic. No, absolutely.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
So it's all
we
jolly
eat
good
quite
stuff.
a lot of liver.
Yeah.
I get my meat from my neighbour, and so he gives me. I get total grass-fed beef, lamb, goat, whatever from my neighbour, and I get the particularly like the lamb's liver and the goat's liver.
My sons still talk about it, Helen. They've since I informed them that there were 238 million head of cattle in Brazil. They suddenly went, more steak there than in Argentina. I said, I think so. Yes. Yes, they dwarf Argentina with a mere 58 million head of cattle. There are 238 million. I'm going, that's an awful lot of steaks. Wow. So you don't know. It may be that people decide on the basis of where the good food is and just go, what's the point? There's no point having all this money if I'm going to rot from the inside out by eating all this crap, which is unfortunately true.
Yeah. Or be careful. In America now, you've heard about all those ticks. They've infected these ticks with some horrible toxin.
Is that Bill Gates again?
Yes, and so he's made the ticks so when they bite you, you then get an allergy to meat.
Oh, right.
It's really sick, and they're chucking them out of planes. So the new chemtrails are now they're just billions and billions of ticks. Mm-hmm. Serves two purposes. They all like multiple purposes. One purpose is it makes the countryside uninhabitable. Oh, you'll have to stay in your 15-minute city. Sorry, right? But also it's meaning that people that get bitten can no longer eat meat, so they're going to have to eat the disgusting fake meat made from cancer cells or whatever it is, God knows, from Bill Gates. It's
just warfare.
So bonkers.
It's warfare.
Yeah, warfare against us.
Dressed up in all these sophisticated pseudo-scientific articles and all this, that and the other. But nevertheless, it's warfare because no one has asked for our consent, and even if we refuse to give it, which we would, that'd be ignored as well. So there's no real, in terms of dealing with those people, there is no solution from a communications point of view. That's simply not possible.
Can we just put them down, Paul? Please, just tell me. Can we just put them down? Just like you would a rabid dog. It's just like.
We need some mechanisms for doing that. I was going to say something very politically incorrect then, but I won't. But it might have occurred to everybody else as well. Anyway, we probably do. We probably do need a few things like that would help. I don't know what to say really. It's not them that I'm actually really concerned about. Although I am slightly concerned about them. I don't give it too much time, like about 5 seconds a day. It's the intermediaries in between that are the problem. The ones that will carry out these orders because they're getting paid. Yeah. And I still think the way to stop most of this, not all of it, but to stop most of it rapidly is to do with banking, as I'm always droning on about here. But I've been like that for 25 years. And that's really it.
They stop being paid.
Yep. If you don't get paid, if you have no purchasing power, they'll stop acting on the orders that they receive. It's as simple as that. You take their hands off the levers of that, and everything that they control start to wither. It's a bit like the ring in Lord of the Rings. All the power was in it. Once it's gone, they all die, because that's the thing that's holding them all up. It would be gradual. It wouldn't be as sort of cinematically explosive and as exciting as it was in the film. Although, who knows? It'd be great if it was. 42 million people have died today. It turned out they were all bastards. So the world's a better place. Great. That's the sort of news we want on BBC. Yeah.
Wouldn't that? Well, we can hope for that. I tell you what, we can hope for that.
Helen, we're coming to the end of the hour. It's been great. We're going to
Yes.
have to do this again. You sound fantastic as well. Wonderful with the microphone. Really, it's spot on audio. It's really good. Where can people catch more of your work and get in touch with you and find out more about your
Yes, absolutely. Well,
house cleaning services?
Yes, exactly. There's the psyche cleaning services. Well, anyway, if anybody's interested in knowing how I do what I do, there's two options. One is, well, they can do both really if they like, but the one is I did put this book together, so it's on Amazon. It's called Emotional Alchemy: The Architecture of Inner Transformation. Right? So that's what it's called, with my name, Helen Basinger. So you can get that with, I think it's an ebook or an actual physical book. Then I also do classes sometimes. I do about 2 a year. I've just did one about 2 months ago, but I may do another because I've got a bit of a little list at the moment of people that'd like to do it that couldn't do it last time. So I may be doing a class. It's usually a weekend thing where I teach people to do what I do. I just pour out as much information as I can. It's a chance for people to practice, and so they can go around either helping themselves or their friends or their clients if they're in this kind of area of business.
Post away like Billio in the Telegram
website.
group, Helen, because Helen posts a great deal in the Telegram group that's associated with this show. You can find the link to it at paulenglishlive.com. And you're very active in that, which is great. I'm going to have to wrap it up now because we've got to say goodbye to WBN. Have a wonderful time with your coffee and bananas, Helen. Really do.
Thank
and I'm
you,
looking
sweet.
forward to seeing the photos, and we'll have you back here in a month or so, something like that, if you're on for it. It'd be
All
great.
right, my darling.
Really enjoyed it.
All right.
Lovely.
I enjoyed myself too. Thanks so much. Ciao.
Brilliant. See you soon. Helen Argyle in Brazil. Okay, we're going to say goodbye to WBN now. We'll be back again same time next week. Technical trousers willing. It's looking bad, isn't it? At times. We'll be back again next week, 3 p.m. US Eastern, 8 p.m. in the UK, and the following week as well. We're carrying on here, however. If you want to keep on listening, you'll have to go to paulenglishlive.com and click, I think at the moment, FFT Radio, although I just got the YouTube stream up and running about 15 minutes ago when the streaming service came back online, which was very kind of it to do such a thing. Anyway, as you know, we're always talking about farming here. Here's an old farming song. I might even play two songs, but here's an old song about farming, which you'll all like.
Hello. A few days ago, I got right away from this smoke and smog and beastliness of the city and slipped out into the country. It was a wonderful day, but of course I got lost. Normally I wouldn't, but I found myself that day down on Jollity Farm. There's a farm called Misery, but of that we'll have none, because we know of one that's always lots of fun. This one's name is Jollity, believe me folks, it's great, for everything sings out to us as we go through the gate. All the little pigs, they grunt and howl, the cats meow, the dogs bow wow, everybody makes a row down on Jollity Farm. Pigs, they grunt and howl.
Grunt, howl, grunt, howl.
The cats meow.
Meow, meow.
The dogs bow wow.
Ruff, 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 ruff.
Everybody makes a row down on Jollity Farm. All the little birds go tweet, tweet, tweet. The lambs all bleat and shake their feet. Everything's a perfect treat down on Jollity Farm. Regular as habit, the cocks begin to crow, and the old buck rabbit sings,
Knock it up a jumper.
the do-do-do, all the ducks go quack, quack, quack. The cows all moo, the bull does too. Everyone says, how do you do, down on Jollity Farm.
Marvellous, wonderful, stupendous, and all that kind of stuff. That was the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band with Down on Jollity Farm. I think it's just called Jollity Farm. That was a live recording. I'll get a studio recording for next week. I mean, we can't have enough of that. What with it being going out on Food for Thought Radio and us being thick as thieves with the farmers and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, welcome back to Hour 3. We're here through to just before 11 o'clock. And the only place you can hear this now, I think, is FFT Radio. Although, as I just said before the break, I got the stream up and running desperately late on YouTube. Rumble's still having none of it, so there we go. So I've got some wonderfully interesting things to do this week. We'll see if we can get those fixed for next week. Our guest is here. In fact, he's been here for yonks. I don't know what's going on. But Frederick, hello. Good evening. How are you?
Greetings, good sir. Happy Thursday from Blackjack Mountain, North Kakalaki.
Oh,
storming like crazy. I hope the internet stays up.
Yeah. What, have you got a storm going on, have you?
Yes, we've got red dots all over the radar map, and the power has been flickering all through your show, but so far it's stayed up, so hopefully we won't have any problems. I'm sorry you had problems.
Oh, it's in keeping.
Yes. But a great show. I thoroughly enjoyed Miss Collie Spell and Miss Helen. That was some great information.
I know. I just thought we'd better get a bloke in, I thought, to sort of balance it out a little bit. It was just all ladies, tonight, because I am a bit of a ladies' man.
Well, yeah, so if you're going to start out the show with Northern Scum, you should finish it with Southern Scum. So
yes.
I'm from the U.S. South.
Yeah.
I loved her talking about Manchester and Bolton. That was great. So I always
Bolton.
Going up to
They
Manchester
say dare. I love the way they speak. It's a very, it's a great accent. I love it. It's fantastic. It's really good. They've got a way of rolling their R's and things. It's fantastic. Yeah. But I think you tap into something there. When you said Northern Scum and Southern Scum, you're tapping it. I've thought this for ages. I've thought that Northerners, Yorkshire and Lancashire, they're the same sort of thing as like Texas is to the rest of America, where like York should have been the head of the whole thing, you see, because it wasn't. And they picked Londinium instead and all that kind of stuff. Actually, we were always going to get beat because they got that massive river. But there is a sort of begrudgingness up north about bloody Southerners and things like that. I don't hold that, by the way, having spent a long time living with people from the south. And they're fundamentally no different. You've got oafs and you've got really great people wherever you go. It's not literally limited by that. I hope people up in Yorkshire don't think I'm being traitorous. This would be bad. This would be very bad, but yeah.
I wish I still had my Northern Scum T-shirt from the band The Beautiful South. I remember them from the 90s. Mm-hmm. And one of their tour shirts was Northern Scum, The Beautiful South.
Nice.
And they were from Manchester, of course.
Of course.
Hull.
Hull. Yeah, they were. Hull. Yeah, they were from Hull, which my dad used to travel to Hull on sales trips and things like that, but he always used to call it hell a bit every day. Although it wasn't as bad then as it's become, and they've got some fantastic fish and chip shops up there. Not that I would know, because I've not been there for 50 years having fish and chips, so it's quite a while, but they did have back in the 70s. And stuff like that. So if you're struck by lightning, we'll know what's gone on. I mean, you have been inspirationally struck by lightning, Frederick. I know that, but I meant sort of literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yes, if you hear a sizzle on the line, you can just go to something, play some more music, like the Doodah Band. I enjoyed that. They're such an obscure band, and they were in the Magical Mystery Tour, the Beatles movie.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
they were. Death Cab for Cutie. A lot of little esoteric information in that song.
Yeah, Oh, they're just, yeah, maybe they're a refined or a developed taste. I don't know. We loved them when we were teenagers. We used to play it all the time. There was one album called Gorilla, I think it was, where someone was just dressed up in a very large gorilla suit. Probably couldn't be done these days. It probably have, implications or something like that. But back then, it was all part of jolly old English fun, and it was great. I remember seeing an interview with them one time where they're saying, well, how did you get into all this sort of music? And at the time, in the 60s, there were all these old record shops in and around London with all these 78s. Nobody was buying them. So they went off and bought them and dug up all these songs and stuck them on the record player and went, we could knock something out like this. And so it's a sort of an evocation of that era with those sort of jolly party tunes and those sort of banjo arrangements and things like that. And they did jolly good. They did jolly good. They were obviously a niche
Spike
band.
Jones had children in England.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so they were a bit of a niche band and everything. Now, hasn't something interesting been going on in politics over there? Not that I caught a very brief sort of to do with this chap Massey.
Yes, the great Massey.
He's a good guy. He's a good man, isn't he? Yeah.
And, it was very interesting how that election panned out. And for, folks not familiar with U.S. politics, we have this thing called the primaries, where you have, just local groups decide who's going to run in the big election for the Republican Party. So you have a Republican primary, and then the Democrats have a Democrat primary, and then come November time, you have the main election where the two parties face off against each other, right? Mm-hmm. Well, one of the strategies of taking out people that don't go along with your agenda is to saturate the primaries for their opposition. So you set up somebody to oppose them, and then you spend all this money and you take them down, because not that many people vote in the primaries. So if you get a few thousand votes, that can swing an election here, right?
Right.
And so rather than trying to take them down in the big election, you take them down in the primaries. And so Massey, Thomas Massey from Kentucky, which is the district of western Kentucky, right below the city of Cincinnati. On the other side of the river from Cincinnati is his district, and it's like 21 counties or 22 counties.
Right.
And he had been, the congressman for multiple terms. Everybody in his district loves him, but he was the one who basically ran forward exposing the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Ehud Barak, scandal, for whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And that's, you can't do that. And so the political parties basically teamed up on him, and Miriam Adelson spent millions of dollars in this primary election. So he broke all kinds of records that nobody has ever spent $33 million in a primary election in the United States. It's just ridiculous money, right?
Yeah.
And so the guy who wins, there are like maybe 20 people at his victory party. And meanwhile, Massey's over here and has got a packed house for losing, right? Mm-hmm. And, it's just amazing. Just this machine we can go in and, with our capital, take out your elections because we don't like what the people are saying. So it's no longer a local representation type election. It's outside influence telling you who you're allowed to vote for. And also, you also have all the 2020 redux where there's like 10,000 ballots showed up in the middle of the night, mail-in ballots. And so that was how they skewed the 2020 elections here in the States.
Right.
And so it's just all the same dirty tricks, but focused on this little precinct in western Kentucky. So, yeah, that's been quite the news cycle here, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't...
Hey, that wasn't right.
No, obviously not. I mean, Massey's one of the few people that's actually uttered truthful statements from your political lot. He was the one that pointed out the fact that AIPAC funds practically the entire, is it the Senate or the House of Representatives? I'm sorry for being so
all of it. I mean, it's
the whole
amazing.
Lot. Okay.
I always call them IPAC instead of AIPAC because there's nothing about America in it. It's the American-Israeli, group.
Yeah.
And, even in the local elections here, it's amazing how people are getting AIPAC money to win but you have to pledge allegiance to a foreign entity. And, that kind of goes against the whole point of the exercise of, an independent republic, that we're supposed to have elections for our people. But you have this big war chest of money, and they say, we'll get you elected if you will do our bidding. And that bidding just happens to be for a foreign power. And, so that's raising a few eyebrows here in the States.
Yeah. Well, of course, another irony, I guess, is that $33 million of it, most of it came out of Americans' pockets gambling in her husband's casinos.
Exactly. That's the thing is, the Adelsons were heirs to Meyer Lansky of Murder Incorporated, his crime network, his gambling empire.
How lovely.
Basically, that's where all this came from. And so all this ill-gotten gain, like you said, is Americans feeding their addiction to gambling. And they're cashing in and becoming multi-billionaires, and then they do philanthropy. I love how they use that word. We're philanthropists. We're here to help
job
you
creators.
With our
we
money.
create jobs in our casinos. We are philanthropists and job creators. Yes. Sorry about the accent. But it's true. It's ridiculous. Yeah, ridiculous state of affairs. Well, Meyer Lansky was a nice man. He was a fine man, wasn't he?
Yeah, so
lovely,
they have
bloke.
statues of him in Israel.
Do they?
Yeah.
They don't,
Yes.
really, do they?
Yes, I'm serious. He is a hero, just like Jonathan Pollard. Meyer Lansky is, considered a great guy. He was doing it because, especially in the first part of the creation of Israel, he was not only sending money over, but also sending weapons and was getting special permission from the FBI to do so. So,
Nice.
all those Israeli settlers before the Nakba, were getting set up financially and weapons-wise from groups like Meyer Lansky's Murder Incorporated, the Purple Gang, the Stern Gang, the Oregon, and the FBI was like, well, it's for a good cause. Gun running for a good cause. It's kind of like cars for kids, right? It's a good cause.
I guess it depends how you define the word good and for whom.
Exactly. That's the rub. It's like, for whom, is this good for?
Yeah. It's, there's this little event, because there'll be another one along next week. Don't worry about that to distract everybody from it. There'll be something coming along next week. This. It's bedazzlingly effective. But it's like, it's a good example, or it's an example of how we are assisting in our own destruction. Is it not? It seems to me. I mean, it's one particular area, but it's that. And I am reminded of a spider. Now, I can't tell you its name. Maybe I'm repeating this. Maybe I said it last week or recently. I don't know. There's a spider that goes into ants' nests. So it's alone. It goes in, and they don't attack it. And it's one against, I don't know how big ant colonies are, but they can get quite big, can't they? Hundreds of thousands, this sort of stuff. And it emits a gas or some kind of odor or pheromone or whatever it is. And what it does is it warps the brains of the worker ants, and they kill their own queen, thereby destroying the colony. And it seems to me that there's a parallel here with what's going on. This is more dark stuff, because I am optimistic's not the right word, but I do feel buoyant about our chances, to be quite honest. This is just a sort of casting a gaze into the area of darkness. But there's definitely that aspect going on that people are still like suckers. We've got them all over here. Still think that there's some kind of political solution to all of this kind of stuff. I mean, there is a political solution, which is to ban politics or to shut parties down or to create only independent candidates. But that's not going to happen. And I'm talking at my bottom if I think it is. And I don't think it is, But, so poor old Mr. Massey. I liked him. He was good. He's always the ones that you like, isn't it? It's always the ones that say a bit of truth. You go, we'll have a bit of him. Oh, no, you won't. We get rid of him.
Well, what's interesting, his concession speech, he really let the plan slip that, this is the beginning of something bigger, that he may have lost this election, but this is going to start something bigger. And a lot of people are wondering if he is going to run for president in the next presidential election in 2028. And
He'd do that as an independent, would he?
As an independent.
You're right.
And so that'll be a very interesting development if we do have a three-way election in the next presidential campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
and how many people are going to leave the Republican Party, the grand old party, over this? Out of that, if basically you had a sitting congressman, an incumbent, taken down by the party because he wouldn't go along with the agenda. He wasn't a team player. Mm-hmm. And it's like he's not supposed to be a team player. He's supposed to be representing the people in his district.
Yep.
That's what they elected him to do. And it's like he's being put down because he didn't play ball with the agenda. And that didn't set well with people in Western Kentucky, to say the least.
No, but I mean, this has been just a gradual decline in all of these spaces. We've got the same thing over here. Basically, politicians, the interests that they're defending are those of their party and therefore their job and their pay packet. And that's really it. I'm not saying anything new there. That's just it. If you had independents in each county who understood what was going on in their county and could put things right. But everything has been this gradual movement towards communist control through centralized power. And it is communism. I mean, I prefer communism to globalism because globalism's just the new imprint for it, but that's all it is. I am still slightly, although I shouldn't be, I'm getting more jaundiced and used to it, but I'm still slightly taken aback that the people that subscribe to that ideology obviously don't either care about the history of this movement or can't even be bothered to look at it because it's just literally rivers of blood and ruin and misery and it's just a disease. It's the spider that's come in and blown gas in our faces and got us to sort of disintegrate around one another, which is it's a bit grim, but there we go. Anyway, that's the sort of dark side of things, I guess.
And you look at the similarities between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party in the United States, and then you look at the Tory Party and the Labour Party in the UK, and it's the same slime mold scenario. Where
it is.
Somebody might start out, it's like, I'm going to get into politics to do what's right and to represent the people of my district. And then they hit that power wall of, okay, you're in the club now. This is the way things work around here. We are the central committee. Here is the agenda. You are now a middle manager. Your job is to sell the agenda to your district. You're not to come in and tell us, what your district needs. We are the central committee, and we decide what your district needs. Your job is just to sell it. So You're basically not a politician. You're not a statesman. You're a marketing person.
Yep.
You're a salesperson.
Well, I don't know. Maybe on a good side, it might all turn out to go just as well as it did in Russia, Frederick. Maybe it'll just, there's always an upside to everything. Maybe it'll be just great. Right. Yes. Unlikely.
Yeah, that's the other part of this central, command type thing is it never works, but yet they keep doing it. Mm-hmm. It's like, how many failures do you need to understand that you've got a flawed model? But
yeah. Well, there's no point worrying about people that don't get it, I think. I think that, there is a minority that do get it, and that's the ones that we have to work with, which is what we're seeking to do all the time, I guess. And there may, as I was mentioning earlier, there may well be, I'm of the view that there are considerably more of us than we are currently aware of. Even the people that are in this direction, I don't think are fully cognizant of how many people there are that would be pushing in this direction. They just need, some of them, of course, probably don't have enough hours in the day to do these sorts of things. I guess that for the few that have still got jobs or whatever, if those things still exist, I suppose they do. But opportunities are opening up all the time for more further study, of course, which is rather sort of distasteful to most people, but it is what's required to sort of get to the grips with all of these things. Changing tack a little bit, just going back to something I was touching on with Helen just then towards the back end, she raised the thing. She put a clip up, and I played it last week when Etta Volt was on with us, which was of Catherine Austin Fitts talking about the demonic influence within power circles of the earth, this kind of stuff, and she said we're talking about intergenerational wealth that's huge and vast and all this kind of stuff. And she referenced a book, which I got a copy of. I don't know if you've heard of it. I've only read about 10 pages. It's called A New Theory of Heaven. Have you heard of this book? By Robert Temple, I think it is. A New Science of Heaven. Sorry, I've got the title wrong. And it's extremely... the first 10 or 12 pages. I'm trying to sell it to everybody here. It's only about £8, I think, for a paperback, 8 or 10 quid. And print's too small, of course. They can't get typefaces right these days. It's really irritating. But he's talking about plasma. And I think plasma, I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was hot gas. That's not what it is at all. It's I'm going slightly sciencey here, to the limits of the layman, which are considerable in my case. But they are unformed atoms. They're basically protons and electrons and all sorts of things in clouds. And there are two massive clouds between us and the sun, which were detected by some Polish astronomer about 80 years ago. And now it's all been proven and they can see these things. And although I haven't read most of the book, my first thought upon this plasma stuff, because they think it could be intelligent and have great influence and do things, is I thought, is this consonant with the ether, this interstitial, that's a lovely word, this interstitial fluid in which we're all supposed to live, the whole energy field in which we live? Because one of the remarkable little facts in just the first 10 pages, or I heard him talking about it the other day, because I watched a video of him and he was really jolly good, is that in the universe, atoms take up less than 1% of everything in the universe. The rest of it is plasma. So that's quite a lot, isn't it? Maybe you don't know anything about plasma and wished I hadn't brought this up. I don't know what you think about it.
Oh, no, this is fascinating. I love this because back when I was at university, it was really when you started seeing, this was in the 80s, 1980s.
Right.
This was when you really started seeing plasma being taken seriously as, the other state of matter. This is something that's not a solid, it's not a liquid, it's not a gas. It's a fourth state of matter.
Yes.
And it's fascinating to me because, like you said, previous to Rockefeller Rothschild science of the 1800s, where they went through and said, we're not going to talk about that anymore, especially with medicine, we don't talk about Galen anymore. And in physics, we don't talk about ether anymore. But we're going to rebrand this as plasma and take out all this other parts of it, especially the part of, is this a sentient thing? That had to be removed, and just to make it, plasma, this dead thing, it's just heated up gases, basically. And it's like, no. There's much more to plasma theory and ether theory than you're allowed to learn about in your scholastic textbooks that were all rewritten at the turn of the century. That all this was taken out.
Yes.
And, yes, I'm very interested. I'm looking at it. A New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple came out in 2023, and I have to track this down. But, it is for the layman. I mean, he says at the beginning, he said, there's been a lot of work done on this, but there's been no communication bridge made, and his book is that. And Catherine Osterfitz praised it quite a bit, and it got my attention. I thought, I need to look at that, and it immediately made me think of the ether. It doesn't exist. Yeah, it does. There's something going on. I mean, the whole every space, and of course, when you look at atoms, there's nothing in them either. I mean, the 99% of an atom's just got nothing in it. That was one of the things when I was, really getting into the esoteric side of quantum theory and subatomic particles and quarks and muons and all these other particles that people were theorizing about, is the amount of empty space, that the majority of everything is empty space, that this little tiny proton and this little tiny neutron and then these teeny tiny electrons, but the rest is empty space. And it's like, why can't I stick my hand through this wall if it's mainly empty space? So that's one of the things I always got fascinating with a lot of the early Gurdjieff work, and I'm trying to think of the oh God, who was the guy that used to hang out with Gurdjieff and did all the books? A New Model of the Universe. Oh, you remember Gurdjieff and all that, the Fourth Way books?
Yeah. Or it used to be pronounced Gurdjieff around me, but I quite like Gurdjieff. That's quite all right. Yeah, he wrote some pretty thought-provoking stuff. Yeah, he did. Why is it to him that you were learning stuff about plasma or ether and things? Was it?
Well,
did he
that
write
was
on that?
the thing is, getting into, like, at the same time in the 80s, I was reading all the esoteric stuff, all the Freemason stuff, and getting into people like Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. That's who I was trying to think of.
Yes,
Ouspensky's work.
Yeah.
And the way they handled things like multiple dimensions. I was really into what exactly is a tesseract, what is a hypersphere, and we're looking at the universe at a very limited. Okay, this is our optical range, this is our audio range, but there's far more in heaven than is dreamt of in our philosophy, because there are things you can't see, there are things you can't hear, and there are things that are there that are outside this three space. So when you start looking at things like plasma and how is the universe layered, and you get into things like Hilbert spaces, just the idea of how many dimensions are there, what is time and how does that affect physics. And so this is fascinating when you look at plasma and then start looking at, okay, what is plasma in 3 dimensions? What is plasma in 4 dimensions? What is plasma in 5 dimensions? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So and you just keep going back to what the Greeks, everybody were saying about ether. That ether is just this thing that is not only another state of matter, but it is like something in another dimension that you can skip through time. That's the other thing is, can you go into this space and do a slip in the time stream? And this was, one of the things H.G. Wells was, researching when he wrote The Time Machine. It's like, what is this 3 space? I can be in the same spot, step out of time, and show up at the same spot 200 years later. That kind of thing. It's like fascinating stuff.
Well, it is. And I think that, the Greeks just using pure logic to effectively articulate the atom by just shaving things. If I take a piece of wood and I cut it in half, and then I take another one and I cut it in half, I've got to get to what's at the end of it. And so they go to say, well, there's got to be a particle. There's got to be something that I can't cut anymore. Well, not with a knife, I guess, or something like that. And it's the whole thing about, I had a big problem with the ether because it sounds, 30 years ago when I first started bumbling into these things, and it just sounds like silliness. But the more you look at it, and then you become aware of the work of Tesla and these other people and tapping into an energy field, and that there is no air in space. There is not as we know it. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it. And so I'm very much looking forward to getting through the rest of the book. So I might be whistling on about that intermittently in the weeks to come, everyone. Yeah. Yeah.
Always like the comedian Emo Phillips, who would bring somebody on stage with him and give them a piece of paper and tell them to start tearing it in half.
Yeah.
And they said, now when you get to the very smallest piece, there'll be this huge explosion. And he goes over to the sides of the stage and he puts his fingers in his ear because they're going to split the atom when you keep tearing the piece of paper.
Yep. Might be waiting a bit.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating because I think, John Pontes in the YouTube chat, and I can see we've got a few listeners on YouTube, so we're sorry that we were late. We haven't got any on Rumble. We've not been able to get through. I've got a few ding-dongs to sort out. Said, all is held together with God's word. I agree. The universe has been spoken. It's as if we're in a field of consciousness, and these are all the aspects of it, but the complexity of it is bedazzling to our tiny little minds. You go, oh, it really is a tiny little mind. I can't grasp all of these ideas. And it's as if the people, the ancients, as it were, they knew this stuff. They just used different words to express it, different rituals to symbolize it, different sort of forms to communicate it. I think we're using scientific language now because it's being given to us, yo-ho-ho. And this is how it's described. When he was, I came across a video of the author, I think, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, giving a little speech summing a lot of this stuff up. He was also talking about a temple in Egypt that they'd been restoring, and it just sounded amazing. And it's become sort of like the number one tourist attraction now. It had a ceiling which was covered in years of cack from people cooking food inside this temple, which was disused. And they sent in a team of restorers, and they've spent 5 or 6 years restoring this stuff to reveal a complete planetary cosmic chart on the ceiling, on the dome, or on the flat ceiling, whatever it is. And it's apparently amazing. Because they spent an awful lot of time looking at the stars. Because if you've ever been to Egypt, there's an awful lot there. There's an awful lot. When you look at the Milky Way, you go, oh, it's really very big. It's really so silly big. And so from the very, very big down to the very, very small, and then you get these sayings like, as above, so below. All of the model of all things is here. It's just down to us, I guess, to some degree, to try and figure it out and make better use of it along the wonky path that we've been given.
And a lot of these old temples, why were they so specific on the materials and where they were placed? Like, you have some that are near mercury deposits, and they have, copper spinets on the towers, and it's like, are you trying to channel some form of energy here? Is this, supposed to be a conduit between these, various metals? And I just wonder if the ancients knew a lot more about electromagnetism and, basically the electromagnetic spectrum than we do, but they expressed it differently. But there's a lot in those ancient temples than, this thing that is, I guess the thing that bothers me so much is when they redid all the scholastic books at the turn of the 19th century and put everything just in a little box. And so everything outside of this little box is just silly superstition and nonsense.
Yes.
And so you brought in this whole generation of people that, actively discarded all that ancient knowledge without even looking at it. And I remember trying to talk to my professors at university about some of these things, and just that they would make a point to humiliate you in class for asking the question. That was how bad they treat this type of information. It's like, oh, that's ridiculous. You have no point. You actually have the head of a department telling you that you have no place here if you think about things like this. We're here to make engineers, and it's like, well, can I ask about things like this?
There's no such thing as a bad question. It doesn't exist. It doesn't. There's no such thing as a bad question. I'm not aware of one. It might be 5 minutes later viewed retrospectively as being silly at the time, but it got you to the next point of thinking, didn't it? That's what they are. They're like, they just push you along. You go, I don't get this. And people are not willing, of course, you're trained at school, to ask questions, because of the very scene that you just described. The humiliation, apparently, in front of the rest of the class. Frederick, are you asking questions again?
Questions again?
Well, it did occur to me that I ought to be doing something like that, yeah. We don't need you doing any of that questioning stuff. There is something sort of freakily disturbing, I find, thinking more and more about the late 1800s and the early 1900s. One does get a sense, and maybe it's this Tartarian stuff, of which I am but a neophyte in terms of looking at it, but I'm kind of bedazzled by a sort of feeling that I have about it, which I don't like, but it's sort of, it's addictive in a way, that there's, the things that you envisage for a more, how can I put it, elevated world seem to have existed. There was something the other day that somebody sent me about all these brollies that people used to carry, supposedly, back then. I have to say that. I can't prove this stuff, but they all had copper on them. They had copper tips, and the men's walking canes had copper handles and copper tips to the ground. Why? Because they were earthing themselves and charging their bodies up. And of course, this is where you need to put your brolly down if there's a lightning storm, because copper and lightning get on like a house on fire, and you'll be incinerated. All that kind of stuff. But it's as if a hidden type of science, let's call it that way, or a hidden type of knowledge, hidden now but not hidden then, has been intentionally removed from our space. And I think you can say that about a lot of things, but it's looming greater and greater, with each passing sort of communication. I mean, the show that was on here before on FFT from, let's see, 7 o'clock UK time, that'd be 2 p.m. US Eastern. The host of that's Guy Anderson, who does a lot of these things, and I've got to really evaluate some of the things he talks about. Some of them are quite alarming, even to me. I'm going, that can't possibly be right, can it? But one must try and retain as best as one can an open mind to looking at these things, because in the end, you've got to just go to sources. The only sort of challenge with that, I tend to think, it is a challenge actually, but it's definitely one worth taking up, not for everybody, is you have to find out your sources. Now, what were their sources? And then you go, well, and what were theirs? And what were their sources? And it keeps driving back. And you end up all the way back in Egypt, which seemed to be an awful lot of sources for an awful lot of things.
Right. And I guess one of the big questions that I've always had is how much of science developed since the last great ice age. Basically, the last great ice age was 50,000 BC to 22,000 BC. And so we're taught that basically we were just, gatherers and hunters. And then suddenly just a few thousand years ago, we started developing civilization. And it's like, well, if you look at the archaeological record, we're told by science that Homo sapiens actually were here 500,000 to 50,000. So there was a huge chunk of Homo sapien development before the last great ice age. And so my question is, how far did we get then? That how much of that completely got lost and destroyed during the last great ice age period? And then you had these groups that were trying to retain that information. And then you get into like you said, the Egyptians, and talking about the Anunnaki and the Nephilim. And it's like, well, are these holdouts from a previous high society that was on the other side of the ice age? Mm-hmm. And that now it's just a remnant and very close guarded secrets? Or have we just literally just started science, when Newton did his book? It's like that kind of thing. The Greeks invented science.
It's difficult, isn't it? It just is. And I'm not even worried about the fact that I'll probably croak it and not know the answers to all of these things, because every answer begats 3,000 more questions, But one thing I think that is true is that there's an adversarial relationship taking place down here. And for whatever reason, and whether they are remnants of the dark side of Atlantis, if there was one, or whether they are beings that arrived here from out there, I don't know. I mean, we were talking about, there was a little thing about the creation of men by the Anunnaki, but it puzzled me a lot. In that, the story goes, and I've heard this from many sources, and one in particular, which I rate quite highly, that they're, at the origins of things down here, or in this current age, because this place there's been multiple sort of civilizational attempts or efforts or actual, wins. I think this place is really, really old. We're just in a different age right now. But I thought, if creatures came all this way here, the story goes, you probably heard this one, they came here because they needed gold. I remember reading this in Nexus magazine back in the 90s, I think it was. They needed gold because their atmosphere was heating up, so they needed a whole sort of like ring of gold particles all around the planet to reflect the sunlight back to stop it burning up. And I thought, yeah, but if you could travel all the way here from wherever there was, isn't it a bit odd that you need human slaves to do it? I mean, if you've got the technology to actually travel here, wouldn't you have all the understanding to basically go, well, we'll build this and that'll build that, and then we'll just get it all done and we can get all the gold we want? And apparently there are, one of the things that was in the video that I wasn't aware of is all these colossal ancient mines all over the place. Everywhere. I think...
and underground cities. That is one of the big things that amazes me, is you had these huge underground city networks all over the planet that nobody talks about.
No.
And it's like, that's kind of an important point, because I've always wondered, during the last great ice age and also the mini ice age at 10,000 BC, when everybody started moving south, we're told that everybody stayed on the surface. It's like, well, why didn't somebody start digging? Then you would have a perfect, chamber that was not exposed to the freezing elements above, so dig down. And then you find that, yes, there were indeed all these big mines.
They're big.
And there were all these big underground cities.
They're really big. It's the scale of these things. You go, whoa. I do. You get blown away by scale. Scale is awesome for us 6-foot humanoid types. It is. You look at those.
Go
there's
out
a door.
and dig a post hole.
Yeah.
It's just how much effort it takes to dig a hole to put a fence post in. And then you say, okay, now we're going to go into the side of that mountain and build a city.
I know. How are we doing that? Here's a shovel, lad. Get on with it. I go, hang on just a minute. It's okay. I've got 10,000 more to help me. If they did that. I mean, it's tricky to say. I do hope that when one comes to shuffle off the mortal coil for this particular innings, that there's an intermission where I get to see the movie. Do you want to see the movie? Yeah, the movie. What's that? Everything. The Everything movie. Yes, please. How long does it last? Well, it's about 8 months. We've condensed it as best we can. You can go see the extended version, which is 4 years. Okay. You'll need to take a break to go to the toilet every 2 hours or something. I want to see the lot. It's as if I wish there'd been, iPhones and video cams going all the way back to Tutankhamun and before. You go, right, great, we've got the footage now. Now we know now we can see what they were seeing and get a much stronger feeling for what life was like. But there's the evolved levels of thought from the Egyptians and all these. It's a different type of thinking. It's a different quality to it. They're paying attention to different things, not about sort of the mechanical management of life, but about what life actually is. And when you think, I was thinking about it today, what I put my attention on, and I thought, well, all of us have been kept purposefully, pointlessly busy with our lives, and they have obviously offered up some satisfactions along the way. It's good to accomplish certain things, and if you're not doing anything, you're not going to get, I do believe that actions are pretty important, because they're great teaching aids. I mean, at least you could say, the action of digging this massive mine in this mountain is not for me. I've learned that now. I've been doing it 5 weeks, and I don't like this. This is no good, and I'm not really interested in the big guy's goals. I'm off. It's sort of direct experience causes you to evolve your thinking about what's important to you. But the past is a mystery, and I guess it will always remain that to some degree. I'd just like to think it's slightly less mysterious now, having looked and gleaned certain things. You mentioned also all this hidden knowledge. Why? I mean, to me, that's an indicator of an adversarial relationship down here, and this does tap into what they were talking about. I remember speaking to someone saying that there were a different class of being down here was supposed to be in charge of the place. You think, well, why isn't God in charge of it? But this would lend maybe some credence to the idea that we were bred with kind of an incomplete intellectual capacity. Because there's a couple of strands of DNA missing, isn't there, or something, or bits have taken out. And that we were hybridized and brought up to a certain condition. And this taps into then certain records in the Old Testament where, God, or one of the gods, Yahweh, instructs his people to go down the road and slaughter everything. Why? Because they were hybrids and someone's mucking about with stuff, and it's dangerous. And even if it isn't dangerous, the boss man said it is, so you better watch out because he's even more dangerous than that. So... it's beguiling, isn't it? I don't know how you feel about it. It's beguiling. When I'm reading this stuff, it's like when I was reading comic books and just sort of, in that different world, and then onto science fiction books. I did all that kind of thing when I was a teenager and loved it, to be quite honest. And you go into this sort of story space and your world's different because of it, because you're absorbing all this piffle and exciting piffle at that.
Right. And, you look at what the Egyptians were thinking about, like during the first dynastic period, 3000 BC, and they produced the Book of the Dead. And that is such a different way of looking at everything, going through the Egyptian Book of the Dead and then comparing it to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And it's like, okay, what are they trying to talk about? And so many of those early translations of the Book of the Dead, you could tell that they were deliberately mistranslating things because they didn't want to go there, right? And then as later better translations come out, it's like, oh, this is getting into, there's more here going on. And this idea of a higher spheres of consciousness, etc. And then, going back to, those early city states like Zor and Ai and Jericho around 6000 BC. And they basically were fertility breeding societies. They were doing selective breeding and husbandry. Where not only were they learning to domesticate animals, but also they were going to breed the perfect society. And so they were doing selective breeding. And you read that some of the sun kings at that time were responsible for siring a huge part of the population. All this wonderful DNA data we have now, it's like you see these bottlenecks where it's like, yes, they were doing selective breeding programs here, and this, one super king basically, spawned an entire generation. And then you see later books like the Old Testament where they were having to go out and wage war against these genetically bred adversaries. So that's a different way of looking at it for sure, but that's what was going on.
It does seem that way. Yeah. It's certainly an explanation or a storytelling point of it that seems to hold a lot of water. It really does. And you could see how if there were, beings that were intellectually and physiologically and physically stronger, more smart and everything, and slightly bigger than you, how you might end up calling them gods, whatever that might have meant back at the time. I don't know the origin of that word, to be quite honest. Apparently, certain footballers are gods now. Things like this.
I hear.
Yeah, they're gods, And it's a term that we use to refer to someone who is achieved an extraordinary high standard in something. It's almost godlike and things like this. But, maybe it's just got a plain meaning in the sense that that's the boss man. He's way, way smarter, brighter, faster than me, and there's no way I can beat him, so I better work with him. And he's said some terrible things, but, it's a bit like today. I'll choose this path, even though it's not perfect, The other thing that was in that little clip as well that I was watching was the idea that we were, and this I was mentioning it earlier, why is it I don't know everything? And of course this seems like, I don't mean it just me personally. Why don't we just know stuff, all of it? Yeah, I know it. Well, this is how this works. This is what we do. We don't currently, but we've got an anticipation that we could, or I do. You look at things and you go, well, we could be much further along here. And then you see that we've been thwarted. And the intention was to create a creature that would be smart enough to receive instructions and act upon them, but not too smart as to ask questions as to why and to cause trouble in the workforce. We don't want any of that. And isn't that what we've got now? It's like the pattern's the same. The form's different. The communications technology is different, and that's been the major thing in most of our lives whilst we've been growing up. Yet the aims is still that. It seems to me that the world has to be controlled, that we must be controlled like cattle on a field, and that all of these laws and taxation systems and banking systems are designed to restrict our ability to have spare time and use it constructively to start thinking about things. That said, I think people like us and the listeners here are doing a pretty good job of spending more and more time thinking about things like this and coming up with some good ideas about stuff. And it's a very fruitful and rewarding sort of journey to take, I find.
Right, and I just love the magic of the internet, that you and I are in two totally different countries, totally different time zones, but yet we're able to have this conversation in real time and have access to all this information now that's on the internet that I would had to have gone to a major library to get in the past. Yeah, that was the thing. You would go to the great libraries of a country to look at what they have. And now all of that is available on your computer. And that flies in the face of people like John D. Rockefeller, who, some people say it's an apocryphal quote, whether he said it verbatim, but this was definitely his intent, was I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. And that was when you had the deliberate dumbing down of the U.S. education system. Up to the U.S. uncivil war, they used to teach ancient Greek and Latin in the high schools in this part of the country.
Yep.
Right now we have English as a second language in this part of the country. It's insane what these public schools are doing, and they're not inspiring students at all. Basically, you're driving students to suicide. It's especially the white males in this country.
They're like everything else, Frederick. They no longer do what it says on the tin. I mean, I remember going to school and dreading the idea of learning Latin. And I didn't learn it. They'd got rid of it a few years before I arrived. This is at my high school. I think my cousin, who's about 8 years older than me, he did a bit. And Greek. And that's simply because the context is not set to really stimulate you to pay attention to it. By knowing this stuff, we'll be able to see into the minds of people from the past and see how they thought. And some of the things they thought are radical, surprising, wonderful, magical. You need that kind of thing, don't you? So we're going to go on a journey, and we need to use some of their language, and you'll find a bit of it tricky, whatever. I mean, that's how I'd teach me. I go, yeah, okay, I'm in. Count me in. What you got? They don't teach Plato and Socrates or Socrates and Aristotle anymore, and they ought to, because that stuff's all over the internet in spaces I suspect that you go to and that I go to. You just see all these quotes, and you build them up, and you go, this is some really cool thinking, this. These guys, certain guys had a handle on things about human nature, human behavior, and yet, courtesy of their control of libraries throughout the ages, there's a whole body of knowledge that we know exists that we're not allowed to see because we're in the cattle class. And it's a bit irritating. And I think this is probably what they're slightly anxious about, is that we're in the process of moving out of that condition. I would like to think. Not everyone, unfortunately, but, because if you have a fully educated questioning population, they're not really controllable, which I'd love to see. I want to be part of that. That would be great fun. But talking about the internet as well, a little article, I meant to cover it a bit more. I might mention a bit more next week. Do you know about an organisation here called Ofcom? You don't have to. It's not a quiz.
Familiar with the term.
It's the Office of Communications, and they replaced all these regulatory bodies that used to supervise telephones, telephony, and all this other stuff, right?
Yes.
And it's a major. It's just ridiculous. They've got.
Yeah, it's basically your FCC. We have the Federal Communications Commission here in the States.
Yeah.
That,
that's right.
What you're allowed
it's a bit
to
more. It's turning into a bit more than that. There's obviously some power behind it. They're trying to sue an American mental health website for allowing British visitors to get there when in fact British visitors couldn't get there. They're extending their jurisdiction to the whole world. That's what they're seeking to do. The whole world, and your use of language and what you can and cannot see is to be governed according to them by Ofcom. And the fact that this suit even got allowed into America tells me that somewhere in America there's compliance with this. It's ridiculous. And yet, so how long have we been on it? We've been on the internet 30 years, right? Since 96, roughly. That's when it really kicked off, when modems became available at, 1K or whatever it was. Super micro speed, but at least you could send an email and it was thrilling when it turned up. Now, it's got to be governed. Who says? What I want is to set up GovCom or something to police and control all government communications and have them shut down. I don't want to get into that stuff. They love all this kind of stuff. It's the driest, dullest stuff, and they bore you to tears. A bit like those teachers that will not inspire you about chemistry. I unfortunately had one. My physics teacher was a different kettle of fish. I took a lot more attention in physics, but I'm not cut out for that sort of stuff anyway. Long term, too busy reading books and things and stories. But So Ofcom are desperately trying to get bigger than their boots. Bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. I mean, they won't be paying a fine or anything like that, but the whole thing, they've sent someone in using VPNs to try and get in and said that they're Americans, so that they're British, and you can't get in from Britain on a normal internet connection. It's this micro control, and don't you think it parallels pretty much newspapers in the 1800s? You had certainly in your neck of the woods, and we had it over here for quite a period. Loads of independent county newspapers all slowly get amalgamated, bought up. Now we end up with a few national newspapers. They're all saying the same thing, and nobody can think anymore because, the whatever it is, that window for debate the Overton window, is now so narrow. And if you step out of it, you're far right. You're a Nazi. There is no far right people in England. None. It's a joke.
None.
It's that everybody else is left. They don't realise that they become goofy goofballs. In my humble opinion.
Here we had the same thing. The local newspaper, the Watauga Democrat, was bought up by Adams Publishing, Echo, Echo, Echo.
Yeah.
And one of the first things the editor did was ban me from their online comment section. Then they banned me from, or blocked me from their Twitter feed, X feed.
Yeah.
That I this like, wait a second, I'm the local here. These are my opinions, my views. It would seem that my local newspaper would be interested in this. It's like, no, you're a wrong thinking person. We're here to only promote right think. And you definitely have wrong think. And so just that level of censorship in your own hometown. And it's like the chutzpah of these people. It's like, who do you think you are? And then, going through, like when Graham Hart was on trial, and I was trying to get access to the Cornwall Live and the BBC, and I got banned from both of those. Just trying to explain the another side of it. So,
you got banned from the BBC? Outrageous.
I did. I know.
Well, it's a biggie. It's a biggie. These things just keep creeping around. I've got too much information coming in to digest it all. That's the other thing as well. There's just too much, and you go, okay, I actually cannot cope with it all. Even if I was super intelligent, I just can't deal with that. This is why we need these little clusters and teams working on different areas. Some people on health and some people on this and some people on that. Anyway, Frederick, it's been great having you on.
Need to stop. Oh,
yeah.
Well, we're just saying, sometimes you have to stop researching and take off your shoes and go walk in the grass and get grounded.
I'll be doing that tomorrow. I'll go and do some of that. You're on RBN, aren't you? Coming up this weekend. We got 20 seconds.
Yes.
Midnight in the UK. Midnight in the UK, and no. Yeah, you are midnight in the UK. I think it's carried on FFT. There's parts of the schedule that are not published. So if you're up late on Saturday night and you want to listen to Frederick, fastest 1 hour in broadcasting. I was on with him a couple of weeks ago. We'll be back again same time next week. We'll see you then, and hopefully I'll iron out some of these video streaming things. We'll see you then. Bye for now, everyone. Bye-bye.